Billionaire held divorce papers tight until his newborn son cried and made him choose love. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from, and once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Oh, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. The rain drummed against the hospital window like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Amelia Carter shifted in the narrow bed, her body still trembling from 12 hours of labor that had left her feeling hollowed out and rebuilt all at once. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional white that made reality feel both too sharp and somehow distant. Oliver, she'd chosen the name months ago, whispered it to her belly in the quiet moments, lay swaddled in the plastic bassinet beside her. His tiny chest rose and fell with the determined rhythm of someone who just fought his way into the world. She reached out, her fingers still shaking slightly, and touched his impossibly small hand. He gripped her finger with unexpected strength. "Just you and me, baby boy," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We're going to be okay." The nurse had left 20 minutes ago, promising to return with fresh ice chips and the discharge papers. The room felt cavernous in her absence. Amelia could hear the muffled sounds of other families in neighboring rooms. A grandmother's delighted coo, a father's nervous laughter, the general symphony of new beginnings that somehow made her solitude echo louder. Her phone sat on the rolling table, silent. She'd turned off the notifications hours ago, unable to bear the cascade of congratulations from friends and colleagues who didn't know, couldn't know, that she'd walked through this entire journey alone. Well, not entirely alone. Her sister Jenna had been there until an hour ago, staying through the worst of it, holding her hand when the contractions peaked, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. But Jenna had 3 kids of her own waiting at home. A husband who worked night shifts, and that particular brand of exhaustion that came from spreading yourself too thin. "Go," Amelia had insisted, forcing brightness into her voice. "We're fine. Really." The lie had tasted bitter, but necessary. 8 months. It had been 8 months since she'd walked out of the penthouse apartment she'd shared with Liam, her overnight bag weighing less than the decision itself. She could still remember the sound of her heels against the marble floor, each step an act of will. He'd been in his home office, always in his home office. The blue glow of multiple monitors illuminating his face as he studied market projections or acquisition reports, or whatever numbered reality demanded his attention that particular evening. She hadn't told him she was leaving. Not in words, but the packed bag had been message enough. He hadn't followed. She'd waited in the elevator, her hand protective over her still flat stomach, willing him to chase her, to say something, anything that would prove she mattered more than his empire. The elevator descended all 42 floors in silence. That was the last time she'd seen him in person. Now, staring at Oliver's perfect wrinkled face, Amelia felt the familiar twist of anger and grief that had become her constant companion. Liam knew. She told him about the pregnancy the week before she left, her hands trembling as she held the positive test. His response had been measured, controlled, a slight nod, a murmured, "Okay," and then a glance back at his laptop screen where some crisis demanded immediate attention. No joy, no fear, no reaction at all beyond acknowledgement. She'd carried their son for 9 months, felt every kick and hiccup, navigated morning sickness while preparing court briefs, attended every ultrasound appointment alone, assembled the crib by herself in her modest one-bedroom apartment in Queens, so different from the luxury they'd shared. And Liam had let her. Oliver stirred, making a small sound that was almost a protest. Amelia lifted him carefully, her body protesting the movement, and brought him to her chest. His warmth seeped through the thin hospital gown, and for a moment the anger receded, replaced by something fiercer, more elemental. "You're worth everything," she told him, her lips against the soft crown of his head. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, The door opened. Amelia's breath caught. She knew, even before she looked up, even before she saw the familiar silhouette in the doorway, some part of her, the part that had loved him completely, desperately, recognized his presence like a change in atmospheric pressure. Liam Huxley stood in the entrance, rain still dampening his expensive coat, his dark hair slightly disheveled. In his right hand he held a manila envelope. Not flowers, not a teddy bear, not even a card. Papers. Their eyes met across the small room, and Amelia felt every carefully constructed wall she'd built threatened to crumble. But she held firm. lifting her
so
chin slightly, her arms
the reason
tightening
we're
protectively
doing the
around Oliver.
$70
You
this
came,
month is
she said,
because
her
everybody
voice steady
was
despite the chaos in her
super
chest.
amazing.
Liam's jaw
Everybody was
worked,
super amazing,
as if he was trying to
last
form
month
words
for
that
my
refused to
birthday, so I wanted
come.
to make sure we
His
upped
gaze
it
moved from her
this
face
year.
to the bundle in her arms,
then
and
going
something
forward,
flickered in his
I talked
expression,
about this a little bit
something
yesterday.
she couldn't quite name.
Going
He
forward,
started,
we do
then
have
stopped.
a bunch
His knuckles whitened
of
around the envelope.
1-800
I brought the divorce papers.
ebook cards.
The words hung
So
in
we
the air
have
between
those.
them,
So
sharp and
what we
final.
will be doing
Amelia nodded
is we'll be
slowly,
doing
feeling the
2
full weight
a
of this
month. We'll
moment.
be doing 2 of
The
these a
ending
month.
she'd known was coming, delivered in a
giveaways,
hospital
rather than
room that
doing
smelled of
the
antiseptic
epic
and new
card.
beginnings.
Now,
Of course you
so instead
did,
of doing the epic
she
card,
said
we'll do
quietly,
And I've
and
yet
in
to
that moment,
decide
as if
if it's
sensing
gonna
the
be
tension, as if
2
understanding
winners
in some primal way that his
for
world
these,
was
or
about to
if it's
shift
gonna
again,
be,
Oliver began to
one
cry.
person gets both.
What would you have done
I've yet
if
to
you were in
decide.
Amelia's position?
Because
Would you have
in
let
the
him stay or
past,
asked him to leave?
right,
Oliver's cry
we
cut
would
through
do
the
a
tension like a
5,000
knife
V-Buck
through
giveaway
silk,
to one
sharp,
person.
insistent,
And then when
and
the
impossible
V-Bucks
to
went away,
ignore.
we changed it to
Amelia's
a
body
$35
responded
epic
instinctively,
gift card for
her
one
hand
person.
already moving to soothe him, but
So I
her
kinda
eyes
feel
never
like
left
one
Liam's
person
face.
would get both of
She
them, but I
watched
kinda
as
like the
something
idea of 2
shifted in
people
his
winning
expression,
also.
a crack appearing in that
so
carefully maintained
we have
mask
that
of
as well.
control. He took a step forward, then stopped. The manila envelope crinkled in his grip. Can I?
Well, thank you,
His
Morgan.
voice
Thank
came
you.
out rough,
It was like
uncertain in a
month and
way
half
she'd
ago.
never heard before. Can I see him?
Power and
Amelia's
internet
first
just went out.
instinct
No,
was to
Fireman, I'm glad
refuse,
you,
to
have
tell him
something
he'd
else,
forfeited
back
that right 8 months ago when he'd let her walk away,
If it's not me,
when
2
he'd
winners.
chosen
If it's me, I
spreadsheets
get
over
both. I mean, that sounds
sonograms,
fair,
board meetings
Panda.
over
That sounds
doctor's
fair.
appointments, his empire
I
over
like
their
that
family.
idea.
The words
like 2
formed on
winners
her
would bring more
tongue,
people to see
bitter
if they get
and
it.
justified.
I-
But Oliver
one
was
thing
still
I was wondering,
crying,
I think more,
and
like,
despite
more
everything,
people
despite the anger that lived in her
appreciate
bones
having more
now,
winners
she
than
found
one
herself
winner.
nodding.
And then I probably
Wash your
would
hands
set it to only
first,
one person
she
can
said
win.
quietly,
Like, you can only win
gesturing
once,
toward the
is
small
what I would
sink
set
in
it
the
to.
corner. There's sanitizer on the wall. Liam
This one I
moved
did.
mechanically,
This one,
setting
one
the
person
envelope
could
down on
win
the
both.
visitor's chair
I
with a
didn't
care
set
that
any
seemed almost
settings for
reverent.
this.
She heard the water
So,
running, the mechanical
but yeah,
dispenser of
we'll
soap,
see.
the
We'll see
rustle
what
of
happens.
paper towels. When he
I
turned
like the
back, his
idea
hands
of
were
doing
clasped
V-Bucks,
together,
though, because
and
the
she
whole
realized with a jolt
epic
that he
gift
was
card thing
nervous.
is just so
Good,
complicated.
she thought, with a flash
Just so
of bitter
complicated because you have to
satisfaction.
enter in
He
the
should
Epic gift
be.
card,
He
then you
approached
have to go to the
slowly,
Epic store,
as
and
if she
then you
might
have to
change
buy
her mind at
V-Bucks,
any moment.
and then
When he reached the
it just-
bedside, he stood
this
there,
just
tall and
automatically applies to your
uncertain,
account.
his eyes fixed on the squirming bundle in her arms. Oliver had quieted to soft whimpers,
Also, since,
his tiny face scrunched
we'll have
up with the
multiple
effort of
tickets,
adjusting to this
unfair for
strange
one
new
person to
world.
put in a ton
He
of-
has your
It's
nose,
not that unfair, Morgan.
Liam said
No, it's not that
softly,
unfair. If you're here
and
every day-
Amelia felt something twist
you're here
painfully
every
in her
single day
chest.
and
He
you
has your
rack up the-
eyes,
because there's no
she
way to get
replied,
points besides
because it
watching,
was true.
right? So I don't
Even
have-
in the
and-
hospital's
or me
harsh
giving them
lighting,
out like I did
she
today,
could
right?
see the distinctive
I
gray
don't have
green that she'd
gambling
once loved getting
turned on
lost
for
in.
points
Or he
because
will, probably.
I don't
The
want
nurse
to
said they
have
might
one
change.
person
An
be like,
awkward
gamble
silence
all,
stretched
and now all of a
between them,
sudden they have a whole
filled
bunch
only
of
by
points to be
Oliver's
able to get-
intermittent
to get,
sounds. Amelia shifted slightly,
get tickets,
every muscle
right?
in
The
her
only
body
way to get
protesting,
points
and
is
Liam's
by
hand
watching.
twitched
So if
as
you're
if he
here every day
wanted to
watching
help
and you
but
have
didn't dare.
enough tickets to
How
buy
long was the
100
labor?
because you were
He
here
asked
every day
finally.
of the month?
12 hours.
I don't see anything wrong
She
with
kept
that,
her voice
personally.
neutral, factual. Started around midnight.
I would say it
He was
would
born
be
at 11:47
messed up
this
if
morning.
there were other
She didn't
ways to
tell
get
him about the
points.
panic when her water broke in the
Besides
middle
me
of the
giving
night.
them out.
How
But I give
she'd
them out to
fumbled for
everybody.
her phone with
It's about
shaking
loyalty,
hands,
exactly. Yeah,
calling
it's about
Jenna
loyalty.
instead of him.
Like,
Didn't
if you're
mention
here
the
every day,
loneliness of
then you get
laboring through the
points.
dark hours, or how she'd gripped the hospital
And I do-
bed rails and
maybe
wished, despite everything,
that winning
that he
is
was
not
there to hold her
as
hand.
frequent as it
Were there
used
any
to be,
complications?
I think I will start
His
doing,
corporate
like,
voice had
hey,
crept
if you're
back
here
in,
during a win,
analytical,
then
gathering
we're just
data,
gonna get points.
as if this
And we'll
were a
probably
quarterly
get
report
300 or
instead of the
100
birth of his
or
son.
600,
He's healthy,
whatever.
7 pounds, 4
But if you're here
ounces,
doing a
20 inches
solo
long.
win, then
Amelia
we'll give
paused, then
points
added
going
with
forward.
deliberate emphasis,
And if you guys
"We're
could
both
help
fine.
remind me
We managed." The
about that,
jab
'cause I often
landed.
do forget
She saw him flinch,
to
saw
give
his
out
jaw
points
tighten,
for things
but
like
he
that.
didn't defend himself,
then I
didn't
would
offer
appreciate it.
excuses or explanations.
Yeah,
The silence stretched
wanted to do
again,
that, but then I
and
was
this time
getting,
it felt
like,
heavy with everything they weren't saying.
6, 7, 8
Oliver
wins
yawned,
a game.
a tiny,
last season-
perfect
or
gesture
last
that
year,
seemed
last chapter.
impossibly human for someone so brand new to the world. Liam's expression softened watching him, and Amelia felt her resolve waver dangerously. Why did you come, Liam? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why now? You had 8 months. 8 months to... She cut herself off, shaking her head. Never mind. I already know. You came to end things officially, to tie up loose ends like you're closing a business deal. That's not... He stopped, exhaled sharply. I came because I needed to see you, both of you, To see us or to see what you're walking away from? The words came out sharper than she intended, edged with months of accumulated hurt. Liam ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized from late nights when deals went wrong or markets shifted unexpectedly. I don't know, he admitted, and the honesty of it caught her off guard. I don't know what I'm doing here, Amelia. I just, when I got the notification, when I saw that he was born, I couldn't stay away. A notification, she repeated, the word tasting like ash. Not a call, not a message asking if we were okay. A notification. From what, the hospital system? The birth certificate filing? He had the grace to look ashamed. Your sister sent me a text. Just, it's a boy. Oliver. Both healthy. That's all. Jenna, of course, her sister, who still believed in second chances and grand gestures, who'd argued countless times that Liam just needed time to process, to understand what he was losing. Amelia made a mental note to have words with her later, and that was enough to bring you here? She couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. After 8 months of silence, I never wanted silence, Liam said, his voice dropping lower. I just didn't know how to break it. Every day that passed made it harder. Every week, every month, I kept thinking I should reach out, should say something, but what? She challenged. But your pride got in the way? But admitting you were wrong was too difficult for the great Liam Huxley? But I was terrified, he said simply, and the confession hung between them like a physical thing. Oliver stirred again, making a small mewing sound. Without thinking, Amelia began the gentle rocking motion that already felt instinctive, even after just a few hours of motherhood. She watched Liam watch her, saw something like longing flicker across his features. Terrified of what? She asked, softer now despite herself. Of this, of failing at it, of being to him what my father was to me, absent even when present, cold, distant. He looked away, staring at the rain-streaked window. I grew up thinking love was weakness, that caring too much meant losing focus, losing control, losing everything that mattered. And then you came along, and you made me feel things I didn't know how to handle. So you shut down, Amelia finished. You pushed me away because feeling something was scarier than feeling nothing. Yes, the admission cost him something. She could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the rigid set of his shoulders. And by the time I realized what I was doing, what I was losing, you were already gone. And I thought, I convinced myself that you were better off, that he would be better off without me ruining everything. That wasn't your choice to make, Amelia said, and felt the sting of tears she'd been holding back. You don't get to decide what's better for us. You don't get to abandon your family and call it noble. Liam's hands clenched at his sides. I know. God, Amelia, I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm here now, and I'm asking, he swallowed hard. I'm asking for a chance, not to fix us, not to go back to what we were, just a chance to be his father, to try to be the man you both deserve. Amelia looked down at Oliver, at his peaceful face finally relaxed in sleep. She thought about all the nights ahead, the feedings and changings and endless exhaustion. She thought about birthday parties and first days of school, scraped knees and science projects. She thought about doing it all alone, which she'd already resigned herself to. And she thought about what it might mean to let Liam try, really try to be part of Oliver's life. Words are easy, Liam, she said finally, meeting his eyes. You've always been good with words when they serve your purpose, but I need more than that. Oliver needs more than that. I know, he said again. Tell me what you need. Tell me how to prove it. She was about to answer when the door opened again, and a different nurse, older with kind eyes and graying hair, bustled in carrying a clipboard and a plastic bag. Sorry to interrupt, sweetheart, she said to Amelia, barely glancing at Liam. Just need to do Oliver's final check before we start the discharge process. Visiting hours are almost over anyway. She turned to Liam with a professional smile. You'll need to head out soon, sir. Mom and baby need their rest. Liam looked at Amelia, and in his eyes she saw a question, maybe even a plea, but she turned away, focusing on the nurse, on Oliver, on anything but the man who'd broken her heart, and now stood there looking like his world was breaking too. I'll go, Liam said quietly. He picked up the manila envelope, held it for a moment as if weighing its contents, then set it down on the bedside table. The papers are there if that's what you want. But Amelia, she forced herself to look at him. I'm not signing them, he said. Not yet. Not until you tell me there's absolutely no chance.
many channels
For
does
Oliver's
it have?
sake, if not for mine.
Next to the
He walked to the
checkbox,
door, paused with his hand on the frame. I'll be back tomorrow, if you'll let me. And then he was
little
gone,
fire icon.
leaving Amelia alone with their son and a manila envelope full of
really
endings that
watched
suddenly felt less certain than they had an hour ago. The apartment felt smaller than Amelia remembered. Or maybe it was just that everything
not
felt
showing your
different
channel
now,
points on here.
filtered through the exhaustion that had settled into her bones like a permanent resident.
I think it's like
She stood in the
hidden in
doorway,
white text or
Oliver's
something.
carrier in one hand and her discharge bag in the other, and tried to remember how she'd imagined this
just
moment.
noticed, like,
In
my
her
fire
fantasies, the ones
icon
she'd
looks really
indulged in
bad
during
on
quiet
your
moments of
white
pregnancy. Coming home had
white
involved
background.
soft lighting and
So I'll have
gentle
to change
music,
that to be, like,
maybe
red or
lavender in the
something,
air,
the
a
embers.
sense of peace and readiness. Instead, she was greeted
That's
by the
fine.
reality of dishes still in the sink from 2 days ago, a pile of unfolded
No, not-
laundry on the
no, not-
couch,
Susie, not
and the
points,
faint
like,
smell of the
channel
Thai
points.
takeout she'd eaten the night her water broke.
Okay,
Home,
anyway.
sweet home, she muttered to Oliver,
Mobile is weird,
who was
yes.
mercifully
And-
still asleep.
okay, if
The
any
taxi
of you
ride
use
from the
white
hospital had cost
background,
$43
I feel really
she
bad
couldn't really
because
afford.
I-
But Jenna's
looking at her
minivan had a
phone,
broken car
and I
seat
didn't
anchor,
realize that
and taking
my
the subway with a
icon
newborn
for,
had
your
seemed
channel
impossible.
points, you click on the
She
little
set the
fire
carrier down
icon
carefully
for
on
your
the
channel
coffee
points.
table, then
You can't
immediately
see it
second-guessed the
because it's white.
location. Was the coffee
And so you
table
can't see
safe?
it on,
Should he be on the floor?
that.
What if she tripped? The sudden weight of responsibility crashed over her. This tiny human was entirely dependent on her now.
Okay,
There was
here we
no
go.
nurse call button, no hospital
Since
staff,
Papa's
no
not here,
safety
right,
net.
did Papa
Her phone
come in
buzzed
while
in
I
her
was looking
pocket.
at that?
Jenna, probably, checking in. She pulled it out
Just
and
make sure
froze.
Papa Bird.
Liam, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to make
Who
sure you
uses
got
light
home
mode?
safely. Her thumb hovered over the
People
screen.
who don't use
She
Twitch,
should ignore it.
because it's the
Should
default.
maintain the boundaries she'd
So,
spent 8
people
months
who don't use
building.
Twitch on a
But
regular
exhaustion and hormones made her vulnerable. And before she could
All right,
stop
all right,
herself, she
Papa's
typed
not
back,
here, so we're gonna
"We're
draw
fine."
another
The 3
person.
dots
This is for the
appeared
20
immediately,
V-Bucks.
showing he was
Allie!
typing. Then they disappeared. Then
Allie's
appeared
gonna be
again.
mad 'cause she
Finally,
should've won
can I do anything? Send
what
groceries?
did I do with the gift
Hire
card?
someone to help?
What did I give my
Amelia's
wife?
jaw tightened. Of course. Money. That was always his solution. Throw cash at a problem until it went away,
What did I do with the
or at
gift
least
card?
became someone else's responsibility. We don't need your money, she typed back, then added, we don't need anything from you. She turned off her phone before she could see his
My
response.
mom would burn my
Oliver
eyes.
stirred, making the small grunting
Allie,
sounds
where
she
you
was already
at?
learning meant he'd wake soon.
Fire
Her
changer, how
breasts
we doing
ached with the
today?
fullness of milk coming in, and the
Allie.
discharge nurse's warnings about engorgement and proper latching echoed
She's
in her
probably
head.
sleeping. She's
She
been
lifted
trying
him
to get more
carefully
sleep
from the
recently.
carrier, still marveling at how light he felt,
Another
how
one for me.
fragile. The nursery, really just a corner of her bedroom with a second-hand
even
crib
in
and a
chat?
changing
Oh
table
my
she'd
gosh,
assembled
that's even
herself,
worse.
waited.
That's even
She'd spent
worse.
weeks making it perfect, painting the walls a soft sage green, hanging
Yeah,
white
I mean,
curtains
she's
she'd
here,
found
yeah.
on sale at Target,
It's showing her
arranging
in
the
here.
few stuffed animals and books friends had given her at the small shower Jenna had organized. She changed his diaper with trembling hands, remembering the nurse's instructions.
up. Okay.
Terrified she'd do something
You'll
wrong.
fight Panda?
Oliver began to fuss, his
I mean,
cries building from whimpers to full-throated
mean.
wails that seemed impossibly loud in the small apartment. Okay,
Fighting
she
pandas?
soothed,
Pandas
lifting
are
him
like
to her
cute,
chest.
cuddly creatures.
I've got you. We'll figure this out together.
Have you seen a
Feeding was
panda?
awkward and
That-
painful at first.
I'm surprised
Nothing
pandas
like
are
the
still
peaceful
around.
images in the
There's a
parenting
reason
books.
they're extinct,
Oliver
because they
latched
just have,
wrong
like,
twice,
this big
making
bear
her
that just
wince
has no ability
before
to
finally
defend.
settling into a
Just, like,
rhythm. She sank into the rocking chair,
around, doing
another
crazy
garage
things.
sale find she'd lovingly refinished,
You could play
and let herself
35
breathe.
duo
This was it.
Dude, that's crazy.
This was her life now. Just the two of them against the world. Her mind drifted
defend
unbidden
Panda
to
to
the
the death. Let's
penthouse.
go.
The nursery
Everybody's
Liam
on
had briefly
Panda's side,
discussed
sure.
before she left.
I don't know
Talk
how
of
they
hiring an
I don't know.
interior
There's
designer,
there's a
of importing a
reason
custom
pandas are
crib from
extinct. Or
Italy,
not extinct, but
of
endangered.
sparing no expense.
There's
He'd
a reason
approached
that they're
impending
endangered.
fatherhood like a project, a
They
problem
kill
to
with
be solved
cuteness.
with enough money and planning. He hadn't understood that what she needed wasn't
It's
expensive furniture or designer
They have
onesies.
they have no
She'd needed him to be excited,
ability to
to
survive, I
be
feel
scared,
like.
to be present in any genuine
they
way.
give their babies away
Instead,
for
he'd offered her a
food? I
platinum
have not
credit
ever
card
heard
and
this.
suggested
That's
she
crazy.
handle the details while he handled a merger in
Allie,
Singapore.
where are you at,
Oliver
Allie?
finished feeding and she
Now, I do
burped
have
him
a rule.
carefully,
You have to be
feeling a
present to
small
win.
surge of pride when he
Asterisks.
actually burped.
Asterisk, unless
Small
you're here all the time.
victories. She'd take
So,
them where she could
we
get
may
them.
just give that one to
The
Allie.
exhaustion was creeping in
I do
now,
have an asterisk
making her
next to it. You
movements
have to be present
slow
to
and
win.
deliberate.
If you're
She
someone
should
who's here
sleep
all
when
the
he
time,
sleeps.
you
Everyone
just
said
happen to not
that,
be here at the
but the
moment.
apartment felt wrong somehow.
I have
Too
some
quiet and
leeway
too loud at once.
on that.
She found herself checking the locks on the door twice, peering out the window at the street below. At 2 a.m., when Oliver woke screaming for the third time, Amelia sat in the dark and cried with him, not from frustration, though there was that too, but from the sheer overwhelming enormity of it all. Every decision felt massive. Every choice weighted with consequence. What if she couldn't do this alone? What if she wasn't enough? The thought of Liam crept in like smoke under a door. He'd said he'd come back tomorrow. Today, technically, since it was already well past midnight, would he actually show up? Or would he retreat back into his world of board meetings and profit margins, leaving her and Oliver as loose ends in his meticulously organized life? Part of her hoped he'd stay away. It would be easier, cleaner. She could build her life without the complication of his presence, without the constant reminder of what they'd lost. But another part, the part she tried to ignore, remembered the look on his face when he'd held Oliver. Not calculation or duty, but something raw and uncertain, something almost like hope. She dozed fitfully in the rocking chair, Oliver against her chest, too tired to move to the bed. When dawn light started filtering through the curtains, she jerked awake, momentarily panicked before feeling Oliver's steady breathing against her. Her phone sat on the dresser where she'd left it, powered off. She should turn it back on, check in with Jenna, let her know they'd survived the night. But she couldn't quite make herself move yet. Instead, she sat there watching the sunrise paint the walls of her small apartment, feeling Oliver's weight in her arms, and tried to convince herself that this was enough, that they didn't need anyone else. The knock on the door came at 8:30. Amelia had just finished feeding Oliver again and was attempting to navigate the coffee maker one-handed when she heard it. 3 firm raps, then silence. She knew, even before she checked the peephole, who it would be. Liam stood in the hallway, and for a moment she just stared at him through the distorted fisheye lens. He looked different in the harsh fluorescent light of her building's corridor, less like a billionaire titan and more like a man who hadn't slept. He was holding a cardboard carrier with 2 coffee cups and a white paper bag that smelled of fresh bagels. She shouldn't open the door. She should tell him to leave, to give her space, to respect the boundaries she'd tried to establish. But she was so tired, and the coffee smelled so good. Her hand moved to the deadbolt before she could overthink it. Liam's eyes widened slightly when the door opened, as if he hadn't actually expected her to let him in. They stood there for a moment, separated by the threshold, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between them. "I brought breakfast," he said finally, lifting the bag slightly. "And coffee. Decaf. I wasn't sure if you could have caffeine while..." He gestured vaguely at Oliver, asleep in the Moses basket she'd set on the couch. "I can have some caffeine," Amelia said quietly. "Just not too much." She stepped back, opening the door wider. An invitation. Or maybe just surrender to exhaustion. Liam entered carefully as if he were walking into a stranger's home, rather than the apartment he'd helped her move into 8 months ago. His eyes swept the space, taking in the dishes, the laundry, the general chaos of new motherhood. "You didn't have to come," Amelia said, closing the door. She kept her voice neutral, guarded. "I know." He set the coffee and bagels on the small kitchen counter. "But I wanted to. I need to." He paused, seeming to search for words. "How was the night?" "Long." She didn't elaborate. Didn't tell him about the crying, or the fear, or the overwhelming loneliness. "We survived." "You shouldn't have to just survive, Amelia." His voice carried something that might have been guilt or maybe regret. "You should have help. Support. I have support. I have Jenna, and my colleagues have been amazing, but not me." He said it flatly, a statement of fact rather than a question. "No," she agreed. "Not you." The silence stretched between them again, filled with all the history they carried. Amelia moved to the coffee, desperate for something to do with her hands. The first sip was perfect, exactly how she liked it, with just the right amount of cream. He'd remembered. That small detail hurt almost more than the big betrayals. "I want to be here," Liam said suddenly. "Not just today, every day. I want to help. I want to learn how to." He gestured helplessly toward Oliver. "I don't know how to be a father, Amelia. I never had a good example. But I want to try. Trying isn't enough," she said, but her voice lacked the conviction she wanted it to have. "Oliver needs more than effort. He needs consistency, presence. Someone who won't disappear when things get hard or inconvenient.
It's on
I know,
on my Instagram.
and I understand if you don't believe me. If you think I'll bail the moment my phone rings with some crisis at work.
For sure.
He took a step
Dave, good
closer,
morning to you, sir. How you
careful
doing
not
today?
to invade her
All right, so
space.
yes,
But I'm asking you to
starting
let me prove
tomorrow,
it.
we'll
Give
be
me a
doing,
chance to show
two
up,
20,
to be the
100
father
gift
he
cards.
deserves and
So
the
starting
partner
tomorrow,
you
we'll be
needed.
doing that.
Partner.
And
The
my
word
daughter
came
just
out
told me that
sharp.
she has a
We're
couple
not
more
partners,
20
Liam.
gift cards.
We
So
haven't been
may
for a
buy
long
up
time.
enough
Maybe we
just
never
to
really
close
were.
out the year,
Then let me be his father.
next
Just that.
year. But I don't
Nothing
really
more.
like I don't really
His
want
eyes were
to. I have
earnest,
about
almost
10.
desperate.
About
Please.
10
Amelia
from
looked at
her.
Oliver,
And
still sleeping
10, 20, 100
peacefully,
$100 gift cards. I
unaware
don't
of the
wanna
negotiation happening
chance
around him.
them
She thought about all the
canceling
moments ahead. First smiles,
I don't know why they
first
would,
words,
if they've already been
first steps.
activated.
Did she have the
I
right to
don't wanna
deny him a father who
activate any,
wanted
so
to be
right now
present,
we have enough to go
even if
out
she doubted
until
his
June or
ability to
July.
follow through?
By
One
doing
chance.
two
She heard
to each
herself
month?
say.
Well, not even
You
that.
get
Not
one
even
chance,
that.
Liam.
It's only like
You
5
disappoint
months,
him.
so May.
You disappear again.
Out to May.
And that's it. I won't let you break
Yeah,
his
Pam,
heart
thank
the
you
way
for
you
hanging
broke
out.
mine. Something flickered across Liam's face. Pain,
I don't even
maybe,
think there
or
is a way.
recognition.
There might
I
be
won't
a way to
disappoint
do
him,
that,
he said quietly.
Susie.
I
There-
can't
like,
promise
giving
I'll be
points,
perfect
like
or that I won't
transferring
make
points from one
mistakes, but I
person to
promise
another
I'll show
may
up.
be allowed. I don't know
Every
if it is.
single
I don't know if
day.
it is or not.
We'll see, Amelia said. But even as the words
W
left her
year,
mouth, she felt
W
something
year
shift
for
inside
sure,
her.
Tommy. Thank
A
you,
door
everybody,
opening
for
just a
being
crack,
here.
letting in the possibility of something she'd thought was
I
lost
appreciate that,
forever.
Tommy. I
The
appreciate
diaper
that.
hung at
That's
an
super
odd
amazing.
angle,
I
one
appreciate
tab
this
barely
support
holding while the
from
other was stuck
everybody
to itself
that-
instead
that's
of the
been
plastic
here.
backing.
And
Liam
it
stood
has been a
frozen
great
over
year.
the changing table,
was hoping
his hands
for
hovering uncertainly
bigger
above Oliver,
things this year,
who
and
had
I thought
chosen
we
this
were going
particular
there.
moment to discover the joy of kicking his legs with surprising
And
force.
then
He won't
Twitch
stop
changed
moving,
their algorithm
Liam said,
stuff on how they're
frustration
counting
creeping
viewers.
into his
So,
carefully
like, my viewer
controlled
count was
voice.
going up, and then it
Amelia
was, like,
watched from the
hanging on there
doorway,
when they did
arms
that.
crossed, fighting the
So we
urge
had a
to
lot of
step in
people
and do it
lurking in the
herself.
background,
It would
but
be
we just weren't
faster,
having stream open,
easier.
so that
But
ended
this
up
was part of the
taking
deal.
a little bit.
If Liam wanted to
I
be
had
present, he
goals
needed to
of
learn the
winning-
messy,
of having
unglamorous
a
parts of
20%
fatherhood. Babies move,
win,
she said simply.
solo win
You
percentage.
have
I
to
have
be
goal-
quick
I
and
had
gentle
goals
at the
of
same
20%
time.
with a stretch
That's
goal of
contradictory. Welcome to
30%
parenting.
solo win
It was
games,
day 3 of
and we did
Liam's
accomplish
presence in
that.
their
We actually
lives.
crushed it.
3 days of him showing up at
now,
8:30 every morning,
though,
bringing coffee and bagels or
even
sometimes
coming
muffins
close.
from the bakery on the corner.
Not even coming
3 days of
close
awkward silences
those,
punctuated by Oliver's
to those
cries and the
But
mundane discussions of
we're
feeding
still doing
schedules
okay.
and diaper
I'm still
counts.
doing okay. So
He'd been
I
staying
still
until
want-
evening,
now that
leaving only when Amelia's
matchmaking
exhaustion
has
became too
changed,
visible to
next
ignore,
year my goal
when even his presence
is
couldn't
still
mask the
gonna
fact
be
that she
trying to get
needed to
back
sleep
up
while
to that
Oliver slept.
20%,
He'd offered to stay
percentage.
overnight to help with the night
Trying to get the
feedings,
Azeron
but she'd
dialed in and
refused.
figured out
Some boundaries needed to remain,
before
even if they were
going back to
becoming
my
increasingly
keyboard.
blurry. Liam finally managed to
'cause I
secure the
just didn't
diaper,
make as
though
many
it sat
mistakes,
slightly
like
crooked on Oliver's tiny
plugging shield
body.
bubbles,
He
for
stepped
example,
back,
when I'm
looking
trying
at
to
his
shop them.
handiwork with the same
I just
intensity
didn't
he
make those
probably
mistakes
applied to
like I
multi-million
did on
dollar
the keyboard, so I'm
contracts.
trying to-
It'll
hopefully
hold,
those will start
Amelia
going away.
conceded. For now. A small victory.
We don't have-
She
like,
saw the
I had a
relief
goal,
flash across his
a
face before he
stretch
schooled
goal,
his expression back to
but my normal
neutrality.
goal
Oliver began to
was
fuss,
Twitch
his face
partner,
scrunching up in
not by
pre-cry
this
preparation.
fall, but next
Without
fall,
thinking, Liam reached for him,
with a
his
stretch
movement
goal of
still
this
uncertain
fall.
but growing more confident with each passing day.
And
He lifted
if I
Oliver
wanna make that
carefully,
work, then I need to
supporting
start
his head the
focusing
way the
on,
YouTube videos had
posting
shown him.
TikToks and posting
Amelia had
posting
caught him
clips and
watching
whatnot.
parenting
So if you guys are
tutorials
in
late
chat,
one night when
if
she'd
you guys are
woken for a
around
feeding.
and something
Hey, buddy.
really cool
Liam
happens or
murmured,
really
swaying
funny
slightly.
happens, why
You're
don't you
okay.
please do
We've got
exclamation
you.
clip,
The we hung in the air.
for me,
Amelia felt its
because
weight
that
but
will
didn't
really
correct
help
him.
out,
Her phone
me
buzzed
being
on the
able to
kitchen
just
counter,
filter through
a reminder about her
the
6-week follow-up
clips
appointment with her
and being
OB.
able to post those.
6
So I'm
weeks
gonna try
felt
to do the same
impossibly
thing I did
far
in the
away
past,
when
where it's
every
like
day
I'd wake up
stretched into
Saturday
an
morning,
eternity of feeding
and
and
I would
changing
make
and
at
soothing.
least 3
But it also felt too
posts
soon.
that I will do
Time
throughout the
moving in
week.
that strange,
Friday,
elastic
Monday,
way that
Wednesday,
new
and Friday,
parenthood created.
because I
I
just
need to
don't
make
have
some
the time to do
calls,
them, like,
Liam said, still
on the
holding
day
Oliver.
of,
For work.
you know, the
Do you
day
mind
of
if I...
stream,
Go
trying
ahead.
to make a
Amelia
post.
gestured toward the living
I just
room.
don't have that
Just keep your
capability.
voice down. She watched him
So-
settle onto her second-hand couch.
Well,
Oliver
sometimes
cradled
I
in
do
one arm while he
have that
pulled out his
capability if I-
phone with
if I
his
wanna
free
spend
hand. The sight was jarring. Liam Huxley, billionaire CEO, sitting in her modest apartment with spit up on his shirt that he hadn't noticed yet, conducting business in hushed tones while supporting a newborn's head. This wasn't the Liam she'd married. That man had been all sharp suits and sharper focus, every moment calibrated for maximum efficiency. This version seemed softer somehow, more uncertain, more human. She didn't know if she could trust it. Amelia moved to the kitchen, starting the familiar routine of washing bottles and pump parts. The monotony of it was almost meditative. Warm water, soap, rinse, repeat. Through the wall, she could hear Liam's muffled voice. Reschedule it. No, I don't care what they say. Family emergency.
I don't think I'm gonna
Yes, still.
There's no
No,
chance
I don't
of
know
me
when I'll
hitting
be
partner
back in the
this year.
office.
I don't
Family
think there's any
emergency.
chance of me
3 weeks
hitting that
ago,
stretch
she and
goal
Oliver had been his
unless I
abandonment.
really start
Now they
working
were his
this whole
emergency,
thing.
his excuse, his
The
reason to
social
shirk
part of it,
responsibility.
right? Like
She didn't
trying
know
to
how to
get
feel
up
about that.
posts every
Amelia?
day,
She
trying
turned to
get more
find
people
Liam
coming
standing in
here.
the kitchen doorway, Oliver asleep
Probably
against
not
his
without
shoulder.
multi-streaming
He'd gotten
even.
better at the
I think I
swaying,
could
at the
hit-
gentle bounce
hit
that
that.
seemed to
There's
soothe.
been- I've seen a lot
He's
of
down,
successful people
Liam said quietly.
within less than a
Should I
year
put him in the
that are hitting to his
bassinet?
partner,
Yes.
and I'm
But keep him on his
super,
back
super
and make sure
happy
the
for
blanket
them.
is below his shoulders.
just not
She followed him
going
to the
this direction,
bedroom,
I don't think.
watching as he lowered Oliver with exaggerated care,
Let's go.
as if diffusing a
Next
bomb
year,
rather
I
than
didn't-
laying
yes,
down a
technically
sleeping
next year.
infant.
Stefan,
But he did
thank
it
you for
right,
the 50 bits.
checking
Thank you,
twice that
thank you.
Oliver was positioned
That is so
safely
cool,
before
thank you.
stepping back. Coffee? She offered,
suggestion. Yeah,
more
so,
out of
yeah,
habit than desire for
definitely.
his
If you
company.
people wanna-
They ended
there
up
is
at
a
her
cool
small
down.
kitchen table,
Basically, it's
the same
cooldowns
one
are
where she'd
roughly
eaten
one per
countless
game, right?
solo
That way I
meals
can
during
only-
her
I only have to
pregnancy.
do them in the lobby.
Liam looked out of place in the space,
squats. But
too
there's a
tall for the
cooldown
chairs she'd
on
found
there
on Craigslist,
that,
too
allows me to
refined
not
for the
have to do
chipped
during the
mugs and
game.
mismatched plates.
But
I've been
if you guys are
thinking,
going out today,
he started,
if you're gonna go
then
celebrate
paused,
New Year's
about the
out,
apartment,
just
the
please
penthouse.
Be safe
It's
today.
just sitting there
Please be
empty.
safe.
You could, no,
if you're
the
gonna
word
drink,
came out
make
sharp,
sure you have a
final.
designated driver or
Amelia,
an
just
Uber or
listen.
something.
You wouldn't have to see me.
Whatever
I could
you're
stay at a
doing, just
hotel,
please,
but the
please
space, the
be
resources.
safe. That's all I
Oliver would
ask.
have his
Go
own
have
nursery
fun,
properly equipped.
100%. Go have
You
fun.
wouldn't have to. Have to
However
what?
you have fun,
Live like a normal
go do that.
person? She felt the
But just
anger
be safe.
rising,
Make smart
hot
choices.
and familiar.
Yes,
This is
exactly.
my
Make
home,
smart
Liam.
choices, because
Mine.
I would
I built
hate
this life without
to
you, and I'm
hear
not going to give it up because you suddenly feel
this
guilty.
week that
It's not about guilt.
so-and-so
Then what is it
was injured
about?
in a car
He was
accident,
quiet for a long moment,
got arrested
staring into his
or
coffee.
something,
I don't know
right?
how to do this.
So
He
just please
finally
make smart
said,
choices.
how to be here
Go
without
have
trying to
fun,
fix
go do whatever.
everything.
We are gonna
It's
do
what
a
I
late
do. I see a
stream
problem. I
tomorrow.
throw money at it until
We're
it's
gonna start
solved.
late. We're gonna start
But
about
you're
2
not a
hours
problem
late,
to be
I
solved,
think,
and neither is Oliver. I know that.
because
I'm just...
I'm going over
He
to my
ran his hand
mother-in-law's
through his
house
hair,
tonight.
that familiar gesture of frustration.
So I figure by
I'm
the time I get
terrified I'm
home
going to
and get
mess
in
this
bed,
up, that I
it's
already
gonna
have.
be
The honesty disarmed her,
12:30,
as it
1
always
o'clock.
did. She wanted to
So,
stay
rather than
angry,
trying to wake
to
up
hold
at
on to the protective
4:30
wall she'd built.
after going to bed
But
that late,
exhaustion and something
push that out
softer, something
about 2
dangerous
hours.
was eroding her defenses. You want to know how to help? She asked quietly.
Retention strategy
Stop
for
trying to
partner?
change
I don't
everything. Stop trying to control it. Just
I
be
don't
here.
know.
Be present.
Just
Do the
start at 1
dishes.
o'clock. That's an
Hold your
option, too.
son.
I could just,
Learn
like,
what
pull an
his different
all-nighter.
cries mean.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean,
That's all I need from
don't
you.
even have an idea
That's
of
all.
how to
He looked skeptical,
get new people
as if
in
the
here to be
simplicity
capable.
itself
No,
was
that's not entirely
suspicious.
true.
It's
Getting-
harder than
getting
it
posts
sounds,
out there, I
she
need to
said.
be focusing
Being
on those
present.
social posts
Really being
and
here,
getting
not just
people in here.
physically, but mentally,
And
emotionally.
I think
Not
for
checking your
me,
phone every 5
right,
minutes
I'm
or
not the
thinking
person
about the
who's
next
fragging
meeting or
out
the
every
next
single
deal.
game.
I'm trying.
I'm not the person
I
who's
know.
fragging out.
And she did know.
So
She
it's-
could see it in the way he
for me, I
focused
think
on
the
Oliver,
key
in the careful
posts
attention
are,
he paid
like,
to every
funny or
detail of care.
silly,
But trying isn't
awkward
the same as
posts
succeeding. And I
are-
need you to
and then a
understand.
couple
One
where I'm
mistake,
fragging out,
one
you know,
disappearance,
here
one
and there.
moment
Like the
of
other
putting
day,
your
I didn't
business
get a
before
clip
your
of it,
son,
unfortunately, but the
and
other
this
day
ends.
where,
I won't give you
someone
another
went
chance
into
to hurt us.
the
The weight of her
sword
words
to
settled
get the
between
sword
them.
first.
Liam nodded
I went
slowly,
into
his
the building,
expression
grabbed a
serious.
pump,
I
came out,
understand.
waited for him to come out,
Oliver's
and then one
cry
pumped him.
cut through the moment,
Like,
sharp and insistent.
an elimination
Amelia
post,
started
but
to
it's also- it's
rise,
just
but Liam was
hilarious.
faster.
You
I'll
know,
get
it's
him,
absolutely
he said.
hilarious,
You
in
rest.
my opinion.
She should argue, should
that-
maintain
that-
control,
that-
but the
he gets the
exhaustion was
sword, but then
overwhelming.
gets one pump.
She let him go,
It-
listening to
absolutely
his
crazy.
footsteps, the gentle murmuring as he picked up
stress,
Oliver,
good
the
morning.
gradual
Good
quieting
morning.
of the
Cartwheels,
cries.
yes.
Through the bedroom door, she could
Exactly.
see him
Well, yes,
pacing
nice.
with Oliver, that same gentle bounce, whispering words she couldn't quite hear.
Not due to
The
alcohol or
tenderness in his
injury,
posture
more
made
like
something
I'm
ache in her
just a
chest.
sleepy. And that's-
She'd fallen
yes,
in love with the
exactly.
idea
I'm
of
not a
this Liam
big-
once. The man who
anymore.
would
I
put
used to
family
be,
first, who would be
100%. I used to
present
be a
and
big
engaged
let's
and
go drink
emotionally available.
person.
She'd
Anymore,
married him believing
I'll have
that
a
man
couple social
existed
drinks,
beneath the corporate
at
armor.
most,
Then she'd learned the
that's it.
armor was
But yeah,
all there
I'm not a
was.
big drinker.
Now watching him
I'll
soothe
be
their
100%
son, she
honest.
wondered if
My
she'd been
youth-
wrong. If maybe,
I
buried
mean,
deep beneath years of conditioning and
I am a
fear,
Marine.
There was something real struggling to surface, but wondering was dangerous. Hope was dangerous. She'd survived the last 8 months by not hoping, by accepting reality as it was rather than wishing for what it could be. Letting that hope back in felt like inviting heartbreak to dinner. Liam emerged from the bedroom, Oliver calm against his shoulder. He just needed some movement, he said, still swaying slightly. I think he likes the pacing. He's your son, Amelia said before she could stop herself. Restless, even when resting. Something flickered in Liam's expression. Pleasure, maybe at being acknowledged as Oliver's father in a way that went beyond biology. There's something else I wanted to talk about. he said
purple
carefully.
is the
The
best,
divorce
okay?
papers.
Don't let
They're
anybody
still
tell
sitting
you
there
otherwise.
unsigned.
Purple
I need to know.
is the
He
best.
paused, adjusting Oliver's
Hands down,
position. I need to
there
know
is
if you
no
want me to sign
competition.
them. Amelia's breath caught.
Your wife was
She'd been
retired Air
avoiding
Force?
looking
No
at
way.
that
There was
manila
a lot of
envelope,
drinkers.
had shoved it in a drawer after the first day. Out of sight,
That's perfect.
out
Yeah,
of mind.
exactly.
I don't know, she admitted. I don't know what I want anymore. That's okay.
Sometimes I wonder
His
how
voice was
Jonathan
gentle.
is still alive
You don't have to
listening
know
us
right
use
now.
stories.
I just wanted you to understand that
there's
I'm
a
not
lot of things that
pressuring you
happen
either
in the
way.
youth and
If you want the
in the
divorce,
younger
I'll
days, for
sign.
sure. Before I
If you
met
want to
my
wait,
fiancée,
we
she
wait.
came to me.
This isn't about me
She
anymore.
helped
It's about
me
what you
down.
need, what Oliver needs.
You want to be
The
a
old
Marine.
Liam would have
There's-
pushed for an
if you wanna
answer,
be a Marine,
would have needed to
everybody-
check this
everybody's allowed to
task off
join.
his list,
My-
to have clarity
coming
and
from a
resolution.
Marine Corps veteran,
This new version,
all
or
right,
maybe
coming
just
from
a
Marine
version
Corps
she'd
veteran,
never
I was
seen
in the
before,
infantry. I,
seemed content to
did all
exist
that
in
stuff.
uncertainty. Okay,
My recommendation
she said
for
softly.
every single person
They sat
who
in
wants to join
silence
is go
for a
join the
while,
Force.
the afternoon light shifting through the windows,
Hands down,
painting
gonna
everything
be
in shades
the
of gold.
easiest
Oliver dozed on
forward
Liam's
for
shoulder,
promotion.
peaceful and
You
unaware
have
of the
the best,
complicated
living
dance his
accommodations,
parents
you
were
have the best
performing
chow
around him.
halls.
Amelia found herself
Everything
studying
is
them,
just like-
father and son,
and
so
you're set
similar in
for
the
a
shape of their
job once
faces,
you get
the
out
way
of
they
the Air
both
Force.
frowned slightly, even in sleep.
Now,
Oliver would grow up to look like Liam, probably.
just wanna be an
Would
idiot
he
like me?
inherit his father's
Yes, I was an
emotional
idiot.
walls too?
I was
His
originally
fear of
contracted
vulnerability?
in to be
She made a
intelligent-
silent promise
intelligence,
to herself.
you know, being
She
like,
wouldn't let
go
that
decode
happen.
stuff or whatever.
Whatever came of
And
her
then I was like, you know
relationship
what, if I'm
with
gonna be a
Liam,
Marine, I really
she would
wanna
raise
be a
Oliver to
Marine.
be
I'm gonna join
different,
the infantry.
to be
And my
open,
recruiter was like,
to
no,
be
you already
present,
have this contract.
to
I'm like,
understand
change
that
it.
love wasn't weakness, but the greatest
And he's like,
strength of
no,
all. Stay for
change it.
dinner,
I was like,
she
okay,
heard
I'll
herself
change
say. I was going to make pasta. Nothing
and
fancy, but I'd like
so I ended
that,
up joining
Liam said.
the infantry.
And the smile that crossed his
And, you know,
face
I
was
was just
so
like, gung-ho,
genuine,
I'm gonna
so
be a Marine,
unguarded,
and I wanna do
that it
this, and I
nearly
wanna do
broke her.
this.
Maybe this was
And
how they
I
moved
don't
forward.
regret any
One
of my
small
decisions.
step at a
I
time,
don't
one
regret
meal
any of my
shared,
decisions.
one
I made some
moment of
amazing
presence.
friends
Not
while
with
I was
grand
in,
gestures or dramatic declarations,
but
with the
if
quiet accumulation of
had
ordinary
made
days.
different choices,
Or maybe she was fooling herself,
probably would've
mistaking
retired.
exhaustion for forgiveness,
I would have retired.
loneliness for love.
That was my plan.
Time
My
would
plan
tell.
was 20
And for
years.
now, that would have to be enough.
And then some
The
things
grocery
happened
store on a
that made me
Tuesday
decide I
afternoon
didn't
should
want
have
it-
been
I didn't want this
quiet.
anymore. I didn't want to
Instead,
be involved in this
Oliver had
organization
chosen
anymore.
this exact moment, standing
and
in
made me get
line
out.
with a cart full
I
of
decided to
diapers
get
and
out.
formula, to have a
And
complete
so
meltdown.
that,
His screams echoed off the fluorescent lit aisles, each
One
cry
of the
seeming
reasons
to
I also
multiply
wanted to
in
be going other
volume.
directions is
Amelia
because
bounced
of
him desperately,
situations that happened.
her arms aching
So-
from 2 weeks of constant carrying. The woman behind her in
Really good
line
chair
shifted
force.
her
Yep,
weight
yep.
pointedly, radiating
100%.
judgment.
I
The cashier,
recommend
a
the chair force
tired-looking
to every
teenager
single
with
person I
acne
talk to.
scars, deliberately avoided eye contact. It's okay, baby,
So
we're
Dad
almost
was a
done,
sergeant
Amelia
major. It was
whispered.
his way or no
But
way.
Oliver was beyond
Understandable.
consolation. His face was red, scrunched tight with fury at the world and
There would
all
be-
its
there would
inconveniences.
have been no
Her phone
La Fiesta,
vibrated in her
most
pocket.
likely. That's
Probably
true.
Liam,
That is true.
checking in like he did every few
well, there
hours
could be a
now.
La Fiesta,
The
just not
constant attention
here
should have
with
felt supportive.
Yeah,
Instead,
life
it felt
would be totally different,
suffocating,
so I'm very
like he was
happy
trying to
with how
manage
my
her
path-
life from his
how
office downtown.
my path was
She
laid
ignored
out
the
for me.
call, focusing on paying, on getting
I'm
out,
very,
on
very
just
happy with
surviving the
where I
next
am
5
now.
minutes. The
But
walk
yes,
home was torture.
100%
Oliver
my
cried the
recommendation
entire
is
6
also
blocks,
Jersey Newfie,
and Amelia felt every stare from passing
wife,
strangers like physical
and
blows. By the
everyone
time
else
she reached her
drinking the
building,
lattes,
tears were streaming down her own
living
face,
the cush life
mixing with the light
over there.
rain that had started to fall. The elevator was broken. Of course it was. She stood at the base of the stairs,
Well,
looking
all
up
the
at the 4 flights to her
voluntolding-
apartment,
all the voluntolding
grocery bags cutting
made me
into
a
her
lot, but you're
palms,
not a lot.
Oliver wailing
you're
against
not
her
a lot.
chest, and felt something
I'm
inside her
blessed.
simply
I'm
give up.
100% blessed.
She sank onto the
For sure,
bottom
with my
step,
wife.
groceries
I mean,
abandoned
she
beside
did
her, and
an
let herself
amazing
cry
job
with
on
her
my
son.
makeup
That's
on
where
Sunday.
Liam found her
I
20
can't-
minutes later.
I
Amelia,
just can't ask
his
for
voice
anything
cut
better
through the fog
than
of
someone who
exhaustion
can
and
do
despair.
makeup like
What
that,
happened?
right? I mean, that
Are
was
you
something
hurt?
absolutely
She looked up
fantastic.
at him through blurry
So,
eyes. He was in a suit.
100%.
Must
It
have come
was
straight from a meeting.
It
His
was.
expensive shoes completely inappropriate for carrying groceries up
Yeah, it
4
was good.
flights of
It was
stairs.
good.
But he
So,
was
yeah,
already
everybody,
reaching for the bags.
Thank you for an
His
amazing
face
year.
creased with
I
concern.
really, you guys
I'm
are
fine,
fantastic.
she managed, though
I'm
clearly
so
she wasn't.
thankful
The elevator's
that
out. I can see
I'm
that.
able to do
He
this
shifted
every
the
single
bags to
morning,
one arm,
and that
then
you
offered her
guys
his
are here
free
to
hand.
talk to.
Come on, let's get you
Because
upstairs.
if I didn't have
She
anybody
wanted
to
to
talk to, this would
refuse,
be awful.
to prove she she could
especially
do
right
this
now.
alone, but
Splitting
Oliver was
solos
still crying,
without
and she
people to
was so
chat with
tired.
would be
She took his
painful.
hand.
Would
The
be painful,
climb
and
was
I don't know how
excruciating.
people do it. I don't
Liam
know how
carried
people
all the
play solos on
groceries,
their own.
while Amelia focused on
Yeah,
keeping
so listen,
Oliver
we
calm and putting
could've-
one foot in
so-
front of the other. By the time
What
they
was it,
reached her
Mike?
apartment, She was shaking. Inside, Liam immediately began unpacking groceries while she tried to nurse Oliver, but he wouldn't latch properly, pulling away and crying harder, and Amelia felt the familiar spiral of inadequacy pulling her down. "What's wrong with him?" she asked, hearing the edge of panic in her voice. "Why won't he eat? Maybe he's not hungry," Liam suggested, setting a gallon of milk in the refrigerator. "He has to be hungry. It's been 3 hours. The schedule says..." "Amelia." Liam's voice was gentle but firm. "Look at me." She did, reluctantly. "When's the last time you ate something? Or slept more than 2 hours? I don't know. This morning, maybe? Yesterday?" The days blurred together. An endless cycle of feeding and changing and trying to keep everything under control. Liam crossed the small kitchen in 2 strides, carefully taking Oliver from her arms. "Go take a shower, a long one, I've got him. But he needs his mother to not collapse from exhaustion." His tone left no room for argument. "Please, Amelia, let me help." She was too tired to fight. In the bathroom, she turned the shower as hot as she could stand and let the water wash away 2 weeks of accumulated stress. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done something just for herself, something that wasn't about Oliver's needs or schedules or routines. When she emerged 30 minutes later, wrapped in her bathrobe with her hair dripping, she found Liam on the couch with Oliver asleep on his chest. The apartment was transformed, dishes washed, laundry folded, groceries put away. The chaos she'd been drowning in had been quietly managed while she was gone. "You didn't have to do all this," she said softly. "I wanted to." He looked up at her, his expression serious. "Amelia, you can't keep doing this alone. You're going to burn out." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You had a panic attack on the stairs of your building." "I wasn't..." She stopped because maybe he was right. Maybe what she'd felt in that stairwell went beyond simple exhaustion. "I can handle it." "Why do you have to handle it alone?" The question hung in the air between them. "Why won't you let me help more? I could hire a night nurse or move in or..." "Because this is temporary," she said, the words escaping before she could stop them. "This version of you, the attentive father, the supportive partner, it's temporary. Eventually, something at work will demand your attention. Some crisis will pull you away, and you'll remember that your real life is out there, not here with us." Liam flinched as if she'd struck him. "That's not true, isn't it?" Amelia moved to the window, unable to look at him. "You've been here for 2 weeks, Liam. 2 weeks of playing house, of pretending this is enough for you. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that parenting isn't a project with a completion date, it's just day after day of the same mundane tasks? This isn't a game to me." His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the hurt beneath it. "I'm not pretending." "Then where have you been for the past 8 months?" The question burst out of her, raw and painful. "Where were you when I was throwing up every morning? When I couldn't tie my shoes? When I was terrified and alone and needed you?" Oliver stirred at her raised voice, beginning to fuss. Liam immediately shifted, soothing him with practiced movements that would have seemed impossible 2 weeks ago. "I was an idiot," he said quietly, once Oliver settled. "I was scared and stupid, and I convinced myself you were better off without me. But I'm here now, Amelia. I'm trying." "Trying isn't enough." She was crying again, frustrated tears she couldn't control. "Don't you understand? Every time you show up, every time you do something right, it just makes it harder. It makes me hope, and I can't afford to hope anymore. Hope hurts too much." The silence that followed was broken only by Oliver's soft breathing and the distant sounds of the city outside. "What do you want from me?" Liam asked finally. "Tell me what you need, and I'll do it. I need you to be honest." Amelia turned to face him, wiping her eyes. "Stop making promises you can't keep. Stop acting like this is sustainable. You have a company to run, a life you've built. Eventually, you'll have to go back to it. Then I'll bring Oliver with me." The words came quickly, desperately. "Or I'll work from here. Or I'll..." "You'll what? Give up everything you've worked for? We both know that's not realistic." Liam carefully stood, Oliver still cradled against him. He crossed to where she stood, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his own eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw. "I don't know what the future looks like," he admitted. "I don't know how to balance everything, but I know I can't go back to how things were. I won't. These past 2 weeks..." He paused, adjusting Oliver's position. "They've been the hardest and the best of my life. Learning to be his father, trying to earn your trust again. It's terrifying and exhausting and nothing like running a company. Exactly my point. No, listen." He shifted closer. Running a company is about control, about managing variables and minimizing
Again,
risk.
thank you, everybody,
This,
for making
us,
2025
Oliver family,
amazing.
it's completely out of my control.
I appreciate
I
you
can't
guys
predict when he'll
so much.
cry or what will make you
appreciate you guys so
smile
much.
or whether
And I
I'm
wish
doing
Jake was
anything
here
right.
now,
And for the
to tell
first
him
time
thank
in
you
my
again for the
adult life, I don't want to
gift
control
today.
it. I
I'm
just
sure
want to
he's
be
working
here
right now.
experiencing it even when it's messy and
Guys, I mean,
complicated.
I'm almost in
Words,
tears
Liam. They're just
right now, thinking about
words.
how amazing
Then let me
2025
prove
was
it with
because of
actions.
you guys.
He reached out with his free hand,
because of you
not
guys.
quite
So,
touching her. Move back to the penthouse. Not for me,
absolutely.
for you. You'd have help,
Absolutely.
space, resources.
We'll
I'll
see you
stay
guys
elsewhere
tomorrow.
if you
We will be
want.
live tomorrow.
But
A
please,
late start.
stop punishing yourself to punish
we will have
me.
a late start,
Amelia wanted to
about 2
refuse,
hours
wanted to
late
cling to
tomorrow.
her
So
independence,
instead
her
of,
small
6
apartment,
p.m. or
her
6
proof
a.m.,
that she
sorry,
didn't
6
need
a.m.
him.
Central.
But she was
We
so
will start at
tired,
8 a.m.
and the thought of
Central,
help,
8 a.m. Central
of space, of
All right,
not
guys.
carrying groceries up
Great
4
day.
flights of stairs while Oliver
Have a
screamed
great
was
day.
almost
Be safe
unbearably
tonight, and
tempting.
we will
I'll think
see you
about it,
tomorrow,
she
guys.
said
Thank you
finally.
again.
It wasn't a
Nick,
yes,
good
but it
evening.
wasn't a no
Jay,
either.
good evening.
Liam seemed to
How
understand
we
that it
doing
was
today?
all she could
Smokey, let's
offer
go.
right now.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
gonna
He
try to
carefully
keep the
transferred
camera here
Oliver
and
back
see
to
how
her
it
arms.
goes.
I should go. Let you
And I
rest.
am-
But he
so my wife
hesitated
is
at the
gonna be doing
door,
my makeup right now.
turning
That was one
back
of
with
the
an expression she
incentives
couldn't
from the
quite
birthday
read.
stream.
For what it's
And,
worth, he said
so
quietly,
we're gonna start
I
that
don't
off
see this
with
as
the wife doing
temporary.
my makeup.
I see it as the beginning of learning how to
let's
be the
go,
man you
Cash. How
both
we doing today?
deserve.
Good evening,
And I
good
know
evening.
you
How we
don't
doing,
believe me
sir?
yet, but I'll keep
Delight,
showing
hello,
up until
hello.
you
Let's go,
do. Keep
Carly.
showing.
Hello,
After
good
he left,
evening. How you doing
Amelia
today?
stood in the
All
quiet
right.
apartment,
So my
Oliver
wife is
sleeping
patiently waiting over
peacefully
here. She's
against her
getting very
chest,
irritated
and
with
let
me
herself
that she's been
consider
sitting
the
here
impossible. What if he
waiting to
meant
go.
it? What if this time was different? The
So-
thought terrified her more than any
All right,
alternative,
I'm gonna
because
do
if she
this
let
if you
herself
want
believe, if she
to
let him
see
in
what this
completely
looks
and he
like.
still left, she couldn't survive that again.
Like,
But as she
there.
looked down
Now
at
you can
Oliver's
kinda
peaceful
see what
face
things
at the
look
future
like.
she was trying to build for him, she wondered
I've
if she
got
could
chat
afford
over
not to
here
take the
now.
risk. The
John's
call
getting ready
came
for
at
his
2:47
Fortnite close-up.
a.m.
Yes, let's go.
Amelia fumbled for her phone in the dark, Oliver's cries already pulling her from the shallow sleep she'd finally managed. But it wasn't Oliver making her phone buzz. He was just building up to one of his middle-of-the-night performances. Liam's name glowed on the screen. She almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail like she had so many calls during their separation. But something made her swipe to accept, even as she lifted Oliver from his bassinet. Hello? Her voice was rough with sleep. I'm sorry, I know it's late. Liam sounded off, his usually controlled tone frayed at the edges. I couldn't sleep and I needed to hear your voice, hear that you're both okay. Amelia settled into the rocking chair, adjusting Oliver to nurse. It's 3 a.m, Liam. I know, I'm sorry, I'll let you go. Wait, she didn't know why she stopped him. Maybe because he sounded as lost as she felt. What's wrong? A long pause. She could hear something in the background. City sounds, maybe. Traffic that never slept. I'm sitting outside your building, he admitted finally. In my car. I've been here for an hour, just, I don't know, making sure you're safe, I guess. You're what? Amelia stood, careful not to disturb Oliver's feeding, and moved to the window. 4 floors down, she could see a familiar, sleek sedan parked across the street. Liam, that's crazy. I know. I just left a board meeting that went until midnight, and I was driving home, and I ended up here instead. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. My therapist would have a field day with this. You're seeing a therapist? The surprise in her voice was evident. Started 2 weeks ago, the day after Oliver was born. Another pause. I'm trying to figure out why I'm so terrified of this. Of us, of being a father. Amelia sank back into the rocking chair, her throat tight. This vulnerability from Liam was new, unsettling. She didn't know how to respond. What did they say? She asked quietly. That I'm repeating my father's patterns. That I learned love was conditional, based on achievement, on performance. That the idea of unconditional love, of someone needing me emotionally instead of practically, triggers every defense mechanism I've built. Oliver had finished nursing. Amelia shifted him to her shoulder, patting his back gently. Through the phone, she could hear Liam breathing, waiting. Why are you telling me this? She asked. At 3 a.m? Because I realized something tonight. In that boardroom full of people who depend on me professionally, I realized that none of it matters. The deals, the acquisitions, the empire I've built. It's all just a way to avoid feeling, to avoid being vulnerable. His voice cracked slightly. And I'm terrified that I've already lost you. That these 2 weeks have just been you tolerating me for Oliver's sake, and that eventually you'll realize you're better off without me in your lives. Amelia closed her eyes, Oliver warm against her chest. Liam, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to us, How I pushed you away because being needed scared me more than any business deal ever has. And I'm trying to fix it, but I don't know if I'm already too late. The silence stretched between them, filled with everything they'd broken and everything they might still save. Come up, Amelia said finally. What? Come up. The door code is 4738. I'll buzz you in. Amelia, it's the middle of the night. I know what time it is. Come up anyway. She heard the car door open, his footsteps on the pavement. She buzzed him in when he reached the building, then waited, listening to his climb up the stairs. The elevator was still broken. When she opened the door, he looked wrecked. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it too many times. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Hi, he said softly. Hi. They stood there in the doorway, Oliver between them, creating a living bridge across the distance they'd built. I made coffee, Amelia said, stepping back to let him in. Decaf. Figured neither of us is sleeping anyway. Liam followed her inside, his movements careful, as if he were entering sacred space. She handed him Oliver while she poured 2 mugs, and he took their son with the same reverence he'd shown since the beginning. He's getting bigger, Liam observed, settling onto the couch. 3 weeks old tomorrow. Amelia joined him, keeping a careful distance between them. The pediatrician says he's gaining weight perfectly. You took him to the doctor without me. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. You were in that board meeting you just mentioned. I would have left. If you'd called, I would have left. Amelia sipped her coffee, studying him over the rim. Would you have? Really? Or would you have promised to leave, then found a reason to stay until the meeting finished? He flinched. That's fair. A month ago, you'd be right. But I'm trying to be different. People don't change overnight, Liam. Especially not patterns they've spent their whole life building. I know. He looked down at Oliver, who was fighting sleep with admirable determination. That's what terrifies me. What if I can't change enough? What if I keep failing you both? What if you do? Amelia asked and saw him wince. What if this is as good as it gets? You trying your best and still falling short sometimes. What then? Then I try harder. I keep showing up. He stopped, seemed to gather himself. I was going to say I don't give up, but I already did that, didn't I? When you left, when you were pregnant and needed me, I gave up without even trying. Yes, she wouldn't give him false comfort. You did. I can't undo that. I can't give you back those 8 months. Can't be there for the moments I missed. But I can be here now. And tomorrow. And every day after. If you'll let me. Amelia set down her coffee, pulling her knees up to her chest. It's not about letting you, Liam. It's about whether I can survive it if you leave again, whether Oliver can. I won't. You can't promise that. She cut him off. You can't promise you won't get pulled away by work, or scared by intimacy, or overwhelmed by what parenting actually requires. You can't promise that in 6 months or a year, you won't wake up and realize this life isn't what you want. You're right. I can't promise any of that. He shifted Oliver to his shoulder, the movement now natural instead of uncertain. But I can promise that I'll fight for this, for us, that I won't run just because it's hard or scary. That's the difference between now and before. I understand what I'm fighting for. Amelia wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this version of Liam was real and permanent, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. The penthouse, she said abruptly. You said I should move back there. Does the offer still stand? Hope flashed across his face before he controlled it. Yes, absolutely. I can have movers there tomorrow. I have conditions. Anything. You don't live there. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She held his gaze. I need my own space. Somewhere I can close a door and know it's mine, not ours. And you don't get a key unless I give it to you. Okay. He nodded immediately. What else? You see your therapist twice a week, not once. And if I ask you to leave, you leave. No arguments, no negotiations. Done. And the divorce papers. She took a breath. They stay unsigned for now, but they don't disappear. We're not married, Liam. We're 2 people trying to co-parent. That's all this is. She saw the hurt flash across his face, but he nodded. I understand. Do you? She leaned forward. Because I need you to understand that I'm not doing this for us. I'm doing it for Oliver. He deserves space and resources and the chance to know his father. But I'm still protecting myself. I'm still expecting you to fail. I won't. He stopped himself. I'll prove you wrong, however long it takes. Oliver chose that moment to let out a massive yawn, his tiny face scrunching adorably. They both laughed, the tension breaking slightly. He's exhausted,
Top
Amelia
tier.
said. We all are. Let me put him down. Liam stood carefully, carrying Oliver toward the bedroom. Amelia followed, watching as he laid their son in the bassinet with practiced care, tucking the blanket just right, checking that everything was safe. When he turned back, they were standing close in the small bedroom, the intimacy of the space suddenly overwhelming. I should go, Liam said quietly. Let you rest. Liam, she caught his arm as he moved past. Why were you really sitting outside my building tonight? He looked at her, and in the dim light from the hallway she could see everything he usually hid. Fear, longing, regret. Because this is where my family is, he said simply. And I spent 8 months pretending I could build a life without you. Turns out I can't. Every road leads me back here, to this tiny apartment, to you and Oliver. And I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I should sign those papers and let you move on, but I'm selfish enough to keep hoping you might forgive me. Amelia's breath caught. She should send him away, should maintain the wall she'd built. Instead, she found herself saying, I'm moving to the penthouse this weekend. Be there Saturday morning. Bring movers. I will, I promise. And Liam? She waited until he looked at her. Stop sleeping in your car outside my building. It's weird. He smiled, a real smile, not the corporate mask he usually wore. Deal. After he left, Amelia stood in the quiet apartment listening to Oliver's soft breathing and wondered what she'd just agreed to. Moving back to the penthouse meant crossing a line she'd sworn she'd never cross again. It meant letting Liam back into her life in a real way, beyond supervised visits and careful conversations. It meant risking everything she'd worked so hard to protect. But as she climbed back into bed, exhausted and uncertain, she realized that maybe protection wasn't what Oliver needed. Maybe he needed his mother to be brave enough to take risks, to model forgiveness and second chances and the messy work of healing. Or maybe she was just exhausted and making terrible decisions at 3 a.m. Time would tell. And Saturday was only 3 days away. Saturday arrived wrapped in uncertainty and cardboard boxes. Amelia stood in the middle of her apartment. Their apartment, the one she'd made into a home over 8 months of solitude, and felt the weight of what she was about to do. The movers Liam had hired moved efficiently around her, wrapping her second-hand furniture in protective padding, boxing up the life she'd built without him. Oliver slept in his carrier, oblivious to the upheaval happening around them. Ma'am? One of the movers, a burly man with kind eyes, approached carefully. We're about finished here. Is there anything else you want us to take? Amelia looked around at the bare walls, the empty spaces where her small collection of furniture had been. Just 3 weeks ago, she'd been prepared to raise Oliver in this cramped apartment, to make it work through sheer determination and stubbornness. Now she was voluntarily walking back into the life she'd escaped. That's everything, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The drive to the penthouse took 20 minutes through Saturday morning traffic. Amelia sat in the back of Liam's car. He'd insisted on driving them himself, watching the city change from her working-class neighborhood to the gleaming towers of downtown. Oliver stirred occasionally, making small sounds that reminded her this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about giving their son the best possible start, even if it meant swallowing her pride. You okay? Liam asked quietly, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. Ask me later. The penthouse building's garage felt familiar and foreign at once. How many times had she parked here, coming home from work or groceries or court, never imagining she'd leave and return as a completely different person? The elevator ride to the 42nd floor seemed to take forever and no time at all. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse, Liam's private elevator, one of the luxuries that had once impressed her, Amelia's breath caught. It was different. The minimalist bachelor aesthetic was gone, replaced by something softer, warmer. The leather furniture had been swapped for comfortable pieces in gentle grays and creams. Thick rugs covered the marble floors. And in the corner where Liam's home gym had been, there was now a fully equipped nursery. I hope this is okay, Liam said, hovering uncertainly as she stepped inside. I had designers come in, but I can change anything you don't like. The nursery furniture is all new, all the safety standards, and I had them set up the guest suite for you. It has its own bathroom, a small sitting room. You'll have complete privacy. Amelia walked slowly through the space, Oliver's carrier in her hand, taking it all in. The nursery was beautiful, not ostentatious or overdone, but thoughtfully designed with soft colors and practical furniture. A rocking chair sat by the window overlooking the city. Blackout curtains hung ready to create the darkness newborns needed. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, maybe. When did you do all this? She asked. After our conversation Tuesday night. I wanted you to know I was serious. He ran his hand through his hair. That nervous gesture she'd come to recognize. Is it too much? It's fine. She set Oliver's carrier down carefully. It's more than fine. It's just what? It reminds me of how you used to solve problems. Throw money at them until they look solved, even if nothing's actually changed underneath. She turned to face him. A fancy nursery doesn't fix what's broken between us, Liam. His face fell. I know that. I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness. I just wanted Oliver to have everything he needs. Wanted you to be comfortable. I know. She softened slightly. And I appreciate it. Really. She gestured helplessly. I'm scared. Being here again, it brings back everything. The good and the bad. Before Liam could respond, Oliver began to fuss. Amelia moved automatically to pick him up, but Liam was faster. I've got him, he said, lifting their son with practiced ease. You should explore. Get familiar with the space again. I'll handle this little guy. Amelia watched them for a moment, Liam swaying gently, murmuring soft words to Oliver, then forced herself to walk away, to check out the guest suite that would be her sanctuary. It was more than she'd expected. Not just a bedroom, but a full suite with a sitting area, a desk by the window, a bathroom with a soaking tub she'd definitely be using. Her clothes were already unpacked and hanging in the walk-in closet. Her books arranged on the shelves. Everything she owned displayed as if she belonged here. She sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. A knock at the door made her look up. Liam stood in the doorway, Oliver now sleeping against his shoulder. Can I come in? She nodded, too tired to maintain the distance she knew she should keep. He sat carefully in the armchair by the window, arranging Oliver so he wouldn't wake. I know this is strange, being back here. I don't expect it to feel like home right away, or maybe ever. But I want you to know, this is your space, completely yours. I won't enter without permission, won't assume anything. Where are you staying? She asked. You said you'd stay elsewhere. Hotel for now. The Meridian down the street, room 2847. He shifted slightly. I can give you the room number in case you need me for anything, or if something happens with Oliver. The thoughtfulness of it, having a plan, being close but not imposing, caught her off guard. Okay, she said quietly. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound Oliver's gentle breathing and the distant hum of the city below. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. I used to sit in this window, Amelia said suddenly, when we first moved in together, before everything got complicated. I'd drink my coffee here and watch the city wake up and feel like I was part of something bigger. I remember. Liam's voice was soft. You'd be up before me, curled up right there with that ridiculous oversized mug Jenna gave you. The one that said nevertheless. She persisted. Amelia smiled despite herself. I broke it. The day I left, dropped it in the kitchen and it shattered. I know. I found the pieces. He paused. I kept them in my office. I don't know why. Something about that admission, the broken pieces of their life together preserved in his pristine office, made Amelia's throat tight. Liam. Oliver chose that moment to wake with a cry that escalated quickly. Liam stood immediately, bouncing and soothing, but Oliver was having none of it. His face scrunched up, turning red with the force of his distress. He's hungry, Amelia said, recognizing the particular pitch. Here, But as she reached for Oliver, her foot caught on the edge of the rug. She stumbled, and Liam's free arm shot out to steady her. For a moment they were frozen, his hand on her waist, her hands gripping his forearm, Oliver crying between them. Their faces were inches apart. Amelia could see the flecks of gold in Liam's gray-green eyes, could smell the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with something new. Baby spit up, probably. His hand was warm through the thin fabric of her shirt, and she realized with a jolt that this was the closest they'd been in almost 9 months. Careful, he murmured, his voice rough. She pulled back quickly, taking Oliver from his arms. I'm fine, just clumsy. But her hands were shaking as she settled into the rocking chair to nurse, and she knew it wasn't from the near fall. It was from the realization that some part of her, the part she'd tried to lock away, still responded to his touch, still remembered what it felt like to be held by him. Liam seemed to sense her need for space. I should go. Let you settle in. Is there anything you need before I leave? No. We're fine. He lingered at the door. I'll come by tomorrow morning if that's okay. Bring breakfast. Liam. She stopped him before he could leave. This doesn't change anything. Me being here. It's for Oliver, not for us. I know. But the way he looked at her suggested he didn't quite believe it. Or maybe just hoped it wasn't entirely true. After he left, Amelia sat in the quiet luxury of the penthouse and felt more alone than she had in her cramped apartment. At least there she'd known who she was. A single mother fighting to build a life. Here, surrounded by their shared past and uncertain future, she didn't know which version of herself she was supposed to be. Oliver finished nursing and looked up at her with unfocused eyes that were definitely Liam's. She carried him to the nursery, to the perfect crib in the perfect room, and laid him down on sheets that probably cost more than her entire apartment's rent. "Your daddy loves you," she whispered, stroking his soft cheek. "He's trying so hard to be good for you. I just don't know if that's enough." But as she stood there in the gathering dusk, watching her son sleep in the home his father had prepared for them, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, she wasn't ready for that, but maybe the beginning of something else. The possibility that people could change, that broken things could be repaired, even if the cracks still showed. She thought about Liam in his hotel room. Close but not too close, giving her space while staying near enough to help. Thought about the nursery he'd created, the suite he'd prepared, the way he'd steadied her when she stumbled. Small gestures, consistent presence. The opposite of everything he'd been before. Maybe it was enough to build on. Or maybe she was setting herself up for heartbreak again. The city lights began to twinkle below, and Amelia made herself a promise. She would take this one day at a time. She wouldn't assume the worst, but she wouldn't expect miracles either. She would protect her heart while leaving just enough space for the possibility of healing. It was the best she could do. And for now, it would have to be enough. The routine had developed slowly over the past 10 days. Liam would arrive each morning at 8. Bearing coffee and breakfast. He'd spend the day helping with Oliver, learning to bathe him, mastering the swaddle, understanding the subtle differences between his various cries. Then he'd leave each evening, returning to his hotel room, leaving Amelia and Oliver in the penthouse that was supposed to be theirs but still felt like borrowed space. It was working, sort of, until Wednesday afternoon when everything fell apart. Amelia was in the nursery, folding tiny onesies while Oliver napped, when she heard Liam's phone ring in the living room. His tone changed immediately, sharp, focused, all business. The voice she remembered from their marriage, the one that could close billion-dollar deals before breakfast. "I understand the timeline," he was saying, "but I've made my position clear. I'm not available for travel right now." A pause. Amelia found herself moving closer to the door, listening despite knowing she shouldn't. "No, Jeffrey, you don't understand. My family comes first now. Find another solution." Another pause. Longer this time. "Then they can walk away. I won't be there to hold their hand through due diligence in Tokyo." Amelia's stomach tightened. Tokyo. She knew what that meant. Liam had been working on a major acquisition in Japan for over a year. Before she'd left, he talked about it obsessively. Called it the deal that would define his legacy. "I don't care if it falls through." His voice was harder now. "I said no. Figure it out without me." He ended the call with more force than necessary. Amelia waited a moment before emerging from the nursery, giving him time to compose himself. When she entered the living room, he was standing by the window, his jaw tight, hands clenched at his sides. "Everything okay?" she asked carefully. He turned and she could see the effort it took him to smooth his expression. "Fine, just work." "The Tokyo deal." His eyes widened slightly. "You remember that? Hard to forget when it was all you talked about for months." She crossed her arms. "They want you to go. They need me to go. Apparently the investors are getting cold feet and only trust me to close it." He laughed bitterly. "Funny how indispensable you become when it's convenient for others. And you said no." "Of course I said no." He moved toward her, his expression earnest. "I told you I was staying, that I wouldn't let work pull me away." Amelia studied him, looking for cracks in his resolve. "This is a big deal. You said it yourself. Legacy defining. It's just money, Amelia. Just another acquisition in a string of acquisitions. It doesn't matter." "Doesn't it?" she challenged. "A month ago, you would have been on a plane without a second thought. Now you're telling me none of it matters?" "Yes," he said it firmly, "because I finally understand what actually matters. And it's not in Tokyo. It's right here." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this time was different, but the nagging doubt that lived in her chest whispered warnings. How long before you resent us? She asked quietly. How long before you start wondering what you gave up? What you could have built if you'd chosen differently? That's not going to happen. You can't know that. She moved to the couch, suddenly exhausted. And what happens when Oliver's older and asks about your work? About what you did? Do you tell him you gave it all up because I didn't trust you to come back? I'm not giving anything up. I'm choosing what matters most. It's not that simple, Liam. Life isn't about grand gestures and dramatic sacrifices. It's about balance. About finding ways to be present while still being yourself. He sat beside her, careful to maintain space between them. Then what do you want me to do? Because last week you were angry that I wasn't choosing you. Now you're angry that I am. I'm not angry. She wasn't entirely sure that was true. I'm just trying to understand if this is sustainable. If you can really walk away from everything you've built without eventually regretting it. Before Liam could respond, Oliver's cry cut through the tension. They both moved instinctively, but Amelia was faster, disappearing into the nursery. When she emerged with Oliver in her arms, she found Liam exactly where she'd left him, staring at his phone with an expression she couldn't quite read. Amelia, he said slowly, what if there was a way to do both? To be present here and still handle the Tokyo situation? Her stomach dropped. What are you suggesting? The investors need FaceTime, reassurance. But the actual negotiations could be handled remotely. He stood, pacing now, his business mind clearly working. What if I did a quick trip, 3 days maximum, showed my face, smoothed things over, then came right back? 3 days. She repeated it flatly. 4 maybe, with travel time. But I'd be on video calls with you every night. You and Oliver could even come with me if... No, the word came out sharp. Oliver's too young for international travel. And I'm not ready for... She gestured vaguely at the space between them. For whatever that would imply. Then I won't go. He said it immediately, definitively. I'll call Jeffrey back and tell him to find another way. And lose the deal you've spent a year building? Yes, if that's what it takes. Amelia looked down at Oliver, who was making soft sounds against her shoulder, completely unaware of the adult complications swirling around him. She thought about Liam in his hotel room every night. Thought about the way he'd rearranged his entire life. Thought about the man who used to disappear for weeks on business trips, now refusing to leave for even a few days. Go, she heard herself say. What? Go to Tokyo. Close your deal. She met his eyes. But if you can't come back when you say you will, if you let this turn into a week or 2 weeks or however long it takes to make it perfect, we're done. Not just the possibility of us, but co-parenting too. I'll move out and you can have scheduled visitation like any other divorced couple. Amelia, I'm serious, Liam. This is your test. Not from me, from yourself. Can you actually walk away from your empire when you promised you would? Can you choose us when choosing us is inconvenient and complicated and potentially costs you millions? He looked stricken. You're asking me to prove myself. I'm asking you to prove it to yourself. She shifted Oliver to her other shoulder. You keep saying you've changed, that you understand what matters now. But words are easy when you're not being tested. So go, close your legacy deal, and then we'll see if you come back. I'll come back.
You're good to go,
His voice was fierce. I'll close the deal in 2 days and be on the first flight home. Then there's nothing to worry about. But even as she said it, Amelia felt the fear creeping in. What if this was the excuse he'd been waiting for? The permission to slip back into his old life, to remember how much simpler everything was when emotions weren't involved. Liam crossed to her, stopping just short of touching. I will come back, but I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll still be here when I do. That you won't take Oliver and disappear while I'm gone. The fact that he had to ask hurt more than she wanted to admit. I won't run. Not this time. Okay. He stepped back. I'll book a flight for tomorrow. Be back by Sunday at the latest. Sunday, she repeated. 4 days. It felt like an eternity, and no time at all. That evening, after Liam left to pack and prepare, Amelia stood in the penthouse with Oliver and tried to convince herself she'd made the right decision. Sending him away was a test, yes, but it was also a risk. What if he didn't come back? What if the familiar pull of his empire proved stronger than his newfound commitment to family? She pulled out her phone, hesitated, then called Jenna. He's going to Tokyo, she said when her sister answered. And you're freaking out. I told him to go. Amelia paced the living room, Oliver asleep in his carrier. I practically dared him to choose his deal over us. Maybe because you need to know if he will, Jenna said gently. Maybe you need to see if he actually meant all those promises. What if he doesn't come back? Then you'll know, and you'll move forward without him, like you were already prepared to do. Jenna paused. But Mel, what if he does come back? What if he actually chooses you? That was the question that terrified her most. Because if Liam came back, if he proved that he'd really changed, then she'd have no more excuses to keep her heart protected. She'd have to actually try, actually risk everything on the possibility that love could survive their mistakes. The next morning, Liam arrived earlier than usual. He was already dressed for travel. Suit, briefcase, the armor of his business world firmly in place. But when he held Oliver, when he pressed a gentle kiss to their son's forehead, the armor cracked. I'll call tonight, he promised, as soon as I land, and tomorrow, and every day until I'm back. Just focus on your deal, Amelia said, trying to keep her voice steady. That's why you're going. No, he looked at her intently. I'm going to prove to you and to myself that I can have both, that I can be successful without sacrificing what matters most. We'll see. He handed Oliver back to her, his fingers brushing hers in the transfer. The touch was electric, a reminder of everything they'd been and everything they might still become. I'll see you Sunday, he said. Sunday, she echoed. After he left, the penthouse felt cavernous. Amelia wandered through the rooms, Oliver against her chest, and tried to prepare herself for the possibility that Sunday would come and go without Liam's return, that she'd wake Monday morning still alone, still abandoned, still proof that people didn't really change. But she'd survived his absence before. She could survive it again. She just wasn't sure she wanted to. Thursday afternoon arrived with radio silence. Amelia checked her phone for the 100th time, watching the screen remain stubbornly blank. Liam had called Wednesday night as promised, his voice crackling through the international connection, exhaustion evident even through the distance. He'd told her about the flight, the hotel, the preliminary meeting, had asked about Oliver, about whether he'd been fussy, about every small detail of their day. But today, nothing. She tried to convince herself it meant nothing. He was busy with meetings, with negotiations, with the very reason he'd gone to Tokyo in the first place. But the silence felt deliberate, felt like a return to the old patterns she'd hoped were broken. Oliver fussed in her arms, picking up on her tension. She forced herself to breathe, to rock him gently, to sing the lullaby that usually soothed them both. Your daddy's just busy, she whispered, not sure who she was trying to convince. He'll call, he promised. The day stretched endlessly. She tried to distract herself, reorganizing the nursery that didn't need organizing, preparing bottles for feedings hours away, starting a load of laundry that consisted of exactly 3 onesies. The penthouse that had felt like a sanctuary now felt like a gilded cage, each luxury a reminder of what Liam could offer materially, but seemed unable to give emotionally. By evening, when Oliver had been fed and changed and was finally sleeping, Amelia found herself standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Liam was living his other life, the one that had always mattered more than she did. Her phone buzzed. She lunged for it, heart racing, but it was just Jenna. Any word? Amelia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could admit the truth, that she was terrified, that the silence felt like confirmation of all her worst fears. Or she could maintain the pretense that she was fine, that she'd expected this all along. Not yet, she typed back, but it's only been a day. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, want me to come over? No, we're fine. But they weren't fine. Amelia was unraveling, and Oliver seemed to sense it, waking every hour with cries that took longer to soothe each time. At 2 a.m., her phone finally rang. She grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it. Oliver's cries still echoing through the penthouse. Liam? I'm so sorry. His voice sounded wrecked. I meant to call hours ago, but the negotiations went sideways and I couldn't get away and my phone died and... It's fine. She cut him off, bouncing Oliver against her shoulder. You're busy. I get it. No, it's not fine. I promised I'd call and I didn't. He paused. Is that Oliver crying? He's having a rough night because of me, because you're stressed and he can feel it. Don't flatter yourself. The words came out sharper than intended. Babies cry, Liam, it's what they do. Silence on the other end. She could hear background noise, voices, the ding of an elevator, the ambient sounds of a hotel lobby at night. Where are you? She asked, heading back to my room. The meeting finally ended 20 minutes ago. He sounded exhausted. Amelia,
you?
I know
Down
you don't
here?
believe me, but I tried to get away. Tried to
I don't think so.
call.
This
But
wasn't
these
the Dragon
investors,
one.
they're difficult and paranoid, and they needed constant
Okay, yeah.
reassurance. And I couldn't just walk out when millions of dollars were on the line. So the money won you after all.
There's
That's not
some
fair,
down there.
isn't it? Oliver had quieted slightly, his cries reducing
I
to
don't have any
whimpers.
ammo to split
You said
right
you'd
now.
changed. That family came first. But the moment your empire needed you, you chose it.
there a med kit
I
there,
didn't
Vin?
choose anything. Frustration crept into his voice. I'm doing exactly what you told me to do. Closing this deal so I can come home. But you're acting like I've abandoned you when I've been gone less than 48 hours. You didn't call. My phone died in an 8-hour meeting that I couldn't leave. That's not the same as choosing work over you. Amelia sank onto the couch, Oliver finally settling against her chest.
What's going on
Liam was right,
afterward? How we
logically.
doing today?
She was
A
being
shotgun
unfair,
and a dead
but the old
eye.
wounds ran too deep, the old patterns too familiar. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Every hour you don't call, every moment of silence, I'm waiting for the message
Bella,
that
there's
says
still
you
probably
need more
people over there.
time, that the deal is more complicated
we're
than
gonna-
expected, that you'll be home next week or the
Oh,
week
here's-
after,
someone just
or
went
maybe
through this bush.
never.
Yeah, two over
Amelia,
here.
and the worst part is, I can't even be angry about it, because I told you to go. I practically pushed you onto that plane, so if you don't come back, it's my fault for testing you instead of just trusting you. Stop. His voice was firm but gentle. Stop torturing yourself with hypotheticals. I'm coming home Sunday. The deal will be
There's
closed
three
by
people in
Saturday
this
night,
bush
and
right
I'll be
here.
on the first flight out.
Or
Nothing is
emoting.
going to
You can
change
emote
that.
also.
You can't promise
here.
that. What if the negotiations fall through? What if they need more time? Then they'll have to wait until I get back to New
Yeah, the
York,
snowmen are super
or
cute.
find someone else, or walk away entirely. She heard a door close on his end. He must have reached his room. I'm learning to set boundaries, Amelia. Learning that the world doesn't end if I'm not available 24/7. It's hard and uncomfortable and goes against every instinct I've spent 20 years developing.
All right, these
But
guys
I'm
are
doing
in
it
the
for
in
us.
them over here. Oh.
Oliver made a small sound and Amelia adjusted him slightly. How's the deal actually going? Honestly, it's a disaster. He laughed,
Hit the
but
red
it sounded
skin. Hey,
hollow.
Vin, I'm gonna
They're
drop you
asking
3
for
shockwaves if you
concessions
don't
I
have it
can't
already.
give, threatening to walk over issues that should have been resolved months ago.
'Cause I have the
Part of
sword.
me wonders if Jeffrey set this whole thing up to fail, to prove that I'm indispensable. Are you? Indispensable? No one is indispensable. The company will survive without me. Hell, it
You try
might
to
even
run all-
thrive.
yeah, you can't really
but my
run
ego
in the
doesn't
snowman.
want to believe that. He paused. My therapist would say I'm tying my self-worth to my
down
professional
here for about
success,
40.
that I'm afraid if I'm not the irreplaceable CEO, I'm nothing. The vulnerability in his admission made Amelia's throat tight. You're not nothing.
so
I'm Oliver's
sorry.
father. You're... He stopped. I'm trying to be someone who matters for reasons beyond a balance sheet. But it's terrifying, Amelia, because I know how to close deals and manage companies. I have no idea how to be the man you both need. You start by coming home when you say you will. I will. I swear I will. Something shifted in his voice, became more urgent. But I need you to promise me something too. What? That you won't leave.
I have
That you
20
won't
AR
pack up
bullets
Oliver
left.
and disappear while I'm gone. That you'll give me the chance to prove myself. I already promised I wouldn't run. I know, but I need to hear it again. Because right now, thousands of miles away, unable to hold my son or see your face, I'm terrified that I'm going to come home to an empty penthouse and a note saying, "You gave me my chance and I failed." Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his fear matching her own. They were both so scared, both waiting for the other to prove all their worst assumptions true. I'll be here Sunday,
All right,
she
I
said
got-
quietly. We both will. But Liam, if you're not on that plane, I will be. Even if I have to walk out of the meeting mid-sentence.
I have
Even if
a-
it costs me everything, I'll
Good,
be
good,
there.
good.
They stayed on the phone for
person I
another
love is Vin. I
hour,
just picked up 200
talking
AR
about
ammo
nothing
also.
and everything. He told her about Tokyo, about the bizarre investor dinner where they'd served fish he couldn't identify, about the hotel room that felt wrong without her and Oliver. She told him about Oliver's day, about the way he'd smiled, really
just got a
smiled
reboot
for the
off.
first time that morning,
Yeah, they just
about
got a
how
reboot
she'd
off right
cried
there.
because Liam had missed it. Take a video next time, he said. I want to see everything,
All right, we
every
need to
moment,
maybe focus
every
zone if
milestone,
we can, guys.
even the 3 a.m. diaper explosions, especially those. She could hear the smile in his
there.
voice. I want it all, Amelia. The beautiful and
Ellie,
the
you said
messy
you had
and
bumpers?
everything in between. When they finally hung up, the sun was beginning to rise in Tokyo. Friday there. Still Thursday night in New York. Amelia carried Oliver to the nursery and laid him in his crib, watching him sleep with the peace only infants possessed. 2 more days. 48 hours until she'd know if Liam had really changed, or if this was all an elaborate performance that would end the moment the curtain fell. Friday passed in a blur of feedings and naps and anxious clock watching. Liam called twice, once in the morning to say good morning, once in the evening to update her on the negotiations.
30 white.
They were making progress, he
the guy
said,
that just glided down.
slowly, painfully, but progress nonetheless. I'll close this tomorrow, he promised, and then I'm coming home. Okay, you don't believe me. I want to. That's something at least. Saturday morning, Amelia woke to a text. Meeting
Okay, on the
starts
right?
in an
Okay.
hour.
That's the team that
This
just
is
got
it.
rebooted.
By tonight, either the deal is done or dead. Either way, I'll be on a plane tomorrow. She stared at the message, trying to parse the meaning behind the words. Would he really walk away if the negotiations failed? Or would he extend his trip, trying to salvage what he could? The day crawled by. She tried to distract herself with Oliver, with cleaning, with anything that would stop her from checking her phone every 5 minutes. Jenna called around noon, offering to come over, but Amelia declined. She needed to sit with her anxiety, to face it alone. At 4 p.m. New York time, 5 a.m. Sunday in Tokyo, her phone rang. It's done. Liam's voice was flat, exhausted. The deal is
Seriously, what the
closed.
heck?
I'm heading to the airport now. Congratulations. She tried to inject enthusiasm into her voice, but it came out hollow. Amelia, I'm coming home. I kept my promise. I know, I'll see you tomorrow. Tonight, technically. I'll land around 8 p.m. your
There
time.
were
Tonight.
15
He'd be home tonight,
people left
12
this
hours
crazy.
earlier than promised. The realization should have brought relief.
16.
Instead, it brought a new wave of panic.
15.
What happened when he got home? What did it mean that he'd kept his word?
So someone is
Did it
just going
change
through
anything?
violating people.
Or was this
No.
just one test passed in an endless series of trials? I need to go, she said abruptly. Oliver's crying. He wasn't. But she needed off the phone, needed space to process. Okay, I'll see you soon. He caught himself. I'll see you soon. After hanging up, Amelia sat in the quiet penthouse and tried to prepare herself for his return. She should be happy, relieved, but all she felt was terrified. Because if Liam kept his promises, if he really had changed, then she had no more excuses to keep her heart locked away. She'd have to decide. Was she brave enough to
What
try
the heck
again?
is that name?
To risk everything on the possibility that this time might be different?
it's Piggy.
Oliver stirred in his crib,
they're using
and she
me
went
as
to him,
bait.
lifting him into her arms.
Well, no, this
Your
guy-
daddy's
no,
coming
the
home,
guy
she
who killed
whispered.
me, his name
And
is,
I have
like,
no idea what happens
Omega-
next.
I
The
don't
hours
even
until
know.
8 p.m. stretched like
Probably
taffy.
from Japanese.
She fed Oliver, bathed him, dressed him in a fresh
Yeah, White
onesie for
Spider-Man?
reasons she couldn't quite
Yeah.
articulate.
Spectate the White
She
Spider-Man, I
changed
don't know
her
what
own
that
clothes
is.
3
Man, so
times
much
before
for
settling
that
on
gave me
jeans
an
and a
easy
simple
one.
sweater. Not trying too hard. Not
was
sending
crazy.
messages she wasn't ready to send.
No, Bella, you
At
leave.
7:45, she heard the elevator. Her heart
Yo,
raced
you
as she
asked me.
moved to the living room, Oliver in her arms.
'Cause
The
you do
doors
exclamation
opened and
leave,
there
you're
was
not- you don't need to be in
Liam,
the-
rumpled, exhausted, pulling a suitcase
Jay,
behind him.
good
Their
evening
eyes
to you.
met across
Piggy,
the
how we
space.
doing today?
I came back, he said simply.
gosh.
And despite everything,
alright. If you guys are
despite
good,
her
we'll go ahead
fears
and
and
just ready
doubts
up
and
this one,
carefully
because there's no
constructed
one here right
walls,
now.
Amelia felt something crack open in her chest. You came back, she echoed. He dropped his suitcase, crossed the room in 3 long strides, and stopped just short of touching them. His eyes
was
were
a sweet game
red-rimmed,
at the end there.
his suit wrinkled, his usual polish completely gone. I told you I
Well,
would.
I guess we got our
His
one
voice
easy
was
game.
rough. I told you I'd
got our
choose
one
you, and
easy
I
game
did.
with you last
Amelia
Friday,
looked at him,
and now they're
really
back
looked
in
at him,
office.
and saw the truth written in every
Dude, Vin, you're
exhausted
like-
line of his
like,
face.
everyone's
He
rotating.
had chosen
It
them.
was just
For the first
absolutely
time in their
insane. I
relationship,
was doing my
when
best
faced with the empire
with my
he'd built
sword
or the
to just,
family he
like,
was trying to
avoid
save, he'd
everybody
chosen family.
and trying to move
I know,
forward.
she whispered. And then, before she could second-guess herself,
I don't know how to
before
pronounce
fear
your
could
name,
stop
Pi.
her,
I'm just
she
gonna say
stepped forward
Pi.
and let
I'm
him
in
wrap his
Colorado.
arms around both of them. Liam held them like they were precious,
Oh, you're good, Jay.
like
You're
they
good.
were everything.
No way, Ricky.
His face buried in her hair,
Ricky,
his body
let's go. How
shaking
we
slightly
doing
with what
today?
might have been
Good
tears.
evening to you.
I'm
Good
sorry,
evening.
he murmured,
Oh my gosh, how was
for
your stream,
everything,
Ricky?
for every time I chose wrong, for every moment I made you feel like you weren't enough. You are enough.
evening to you.
You're everything. Amelia
worries,
closed
Ricky.
her eyes, breathing in the familiar scent of him mixed with airport and exhaustion and determination.
I did not know there was a
This
llama.
didn't fix everything, didn't erase the hurt or guarantee the future, but it was a start. It was enough to hope. 3 weeks after
see me.
Tokyo,
How we doing
Amelia
today?
woke to find
Good
Liam asleep on the
evening to you.
couch.
Good evening.
It had become a pattern. He'd stay late helping with Oliver, and rather than make the drive back to his hotel in the early morning hours, he'd crash
This one
wherever he
does
landed.
not.
Sometimes the couch,
Last one did.
sometimes the armchair by the nursery, once even on the floor beside Oliver's crib when their son had been particularly fussy. She stood in the doorway watching him sleep, his tie loosened, shirt wrinkled, one arm hanging off the couch in a way that would definitely cause pain when he woke. He looked younger in sleep, vulnerable in a way he never allowed when conscious. Oliver stirred in her arms, making the soft grunting sounds that preceded full wakefulness. Liam's eyes opened immediately, that new father instinct already ingrained. "Morning," he said, his voice rough. "What time is it?" 6:30. She moved to the kitchen to prepare a bottle, Liam following after a moment. "You didn't have to stay again." "I wanted to." He ran his hand through his hair, trying to tame it into something presentable. "Besides, Oliver had that weird cough last night. I wanted to make sure he was okay." The cough had been nothing. The pediatrician had confirmed it over a video call. But Liam's concern had been genuine, almost overwhelming. He'd spent 2 hours researching infant respiratory issues, had called his assistant to find the best pediatric pulmonologist in the city just in case, had barely slept worrying. It was sweet and terrifying, because every day he showed up, every night he stayed, every moment he proved he'd changed. Amelia felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling a little more. "Coffee," she offered, the same ritual they'd developed over the past weeks. "Please." They moved around the kitchen in a dance that had become familiar. She prepared Oliver's bottle while Liam started the coffee, their movements synchronized in a way that would have seemed impossible 2 months ago. Oliver watched them with alert eyes that were definitely Liam's, tracking their movements with infant focus. "I need to talk to you about something," Liam said, as they settled at the kitchen table. Amelia's stomach tightened. Those words never led anywhere good. "Okay." The board called an emergency meeting. "Tomorrow." He wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. "They're concerned about my continued absence, about the direction of the company. You've been working remotely." "I have, but it's not the same as being there, and we both know it." He met her eyes. "They're questioning my commitment. Some members are suggesting I step down as CEO." The words hung in the air between them. Amelia shifted Oliver to her shoulder, processing. "What do you want to do?" "Honestly, I don't know." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. 6 months ago, the answer would have been obvious. I'd fight tooth and nail to keep my position, sacrifice whatever was necessary to maintain control. But now you have other priorities. Now I have the only priority that actually matters. He gestured between them, to Oliver. "This, us, whatever we're building here." Amelia's heart raced. "Liam, I can't be the reason you lose your company. Can't be the excuse for..." "You're not an excuse, you're a choice." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "And I'm choosing you, both of you. If the board wants me out, then I'm out." "You don't mean that." "I do." His voice was steady, certain. "I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to balance everything, and I'm exhausted. Something has to give, and it's not going to be my family. Not again." Before Amelia could respond, Oliver began to fuss. She automatically began the bouncing motion that sometimes soothed him, but he was working himself up to a full cry. "Let me." Liam took him, walking toward the nursery. "I think he needs a change." Amelia sat alone at the table, her mind spinning. Liam was willing to give up his company, his empire, everything he'd spent 20 years building. For them, it should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like an impossible weight. She found them in the nursery 10 minutes later. Liam changing Oliver's diaper with practiced efficiency while singing, actually singing, some song about bears that she vaguely recognized from childhood. "You sing to him," she said from the doorway. Liam looked up, slightly embarrassed. "Seems to help. He likes the vibration or something." "You're good at this." The admission came easier now. "Being his father, you're really good at it." "I'm trying." He finished securing the diaper, lifting Oliver to his shoulder. "Every day I wake up terrified I'll mess it up, that I'll revert to the old patterns, the old priorities. But then I see him, see you, and I remember what I'm fighting for." "Liam, I love you." The words rushed out, urgent and unplanned. "I know I have no right to say it. No, I lost that privilege when I let you walk away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I need you to know, I love you. I love our son, and I'm willing to give up everything else to prove it." Amelia's breath caught. She'd known it was coming, had felt it building in every lingering glance, every accidental touch, every moment of domestic intimacy. But hearing the words still shook her. "You can't give up your company for me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not giving it up for you, I'm giving it up for me." He moved closer, still holding Oliver. Because I finally understand that being CEO doesn't define me. Being a good father does. Being a good partner does. And I can't be those things while trying to run an empire. But what if you regret it? What if 6 months from now, a year from now, you wake up and resent us for what you lost? The only thing I regret is the time I wasted. The months I spent building something that doesn't matter instead of being here. Building this. He gestured around the nursery, but she knew he meant more than just the physical space.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah,
I regret
last
every
Sunday I got a
moment I
haircut.
chose work
And
over you.
obviously,
Every night I
every
stayed late at the office. Every
you guys
time I
shared
made you
your
feel
phone
like you
too,
weren't
we
my
already did.
priority. Tears were streaming down Amelia's face now. I'm scared. I know, so am I. He
And
reached out
Bella
with his free
just
hand,
cut off,
cupping
like,
her
10
face
inches.
gently. But I'm more scared of losing you again. Of Oliver growing up without really knowing me. Of spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been if I'd just been brave enough to choose love. Liam, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to forgive me or love me back or even trust me yet. I just needed you to know where I stand, what I'm willing to do. He paused, his thumb brushing away her tears. Tomorrow, I'm going to that board meeting, and I'm going to tell them that they can have the company or they can have me, but they can't have both. Not anymore. What if there's another way? The word surprised even her. What if you don't have to choose between everything? What if you can find a balance? Hope flickered in his expression. What are you saying? I'm saying, she took a shaky breath. I'm saying that I don't want you to sacrifice everything. I want you to be happy, fulfilled. And if the company is part of that, then we figure out how to make it work. The company isn't what makes me happy anymore. He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. You do. Oliver does. Coming home to this, being present for the small moments. That's what makes me happy. Amelia looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every line of his face. He meant it. This wasn't a grand gesture or a temporary phase. This was real change, painful and permanent. I'm still angry, she said quietly, at what you did, at the months you left me alone. I know, and I'm still scared that this is too good to be true, that you'll change your mind. I know that too. But, she took another breath, steadying herself. But I think I'm ready to try, really try. Not just co-parenting, but us. The hope in his expression bloomed into something brighter, more intense. Amelia, I'm not saying everything's fixed. We still have so much to work through, so much hurt to heal. But watching you these past weeks, seeing you show up every single day, keeping every promise, her voice cracked. I think I'm ready to believe you've changed, that we can have a second chance. Liam carefully transferred Oliver to the crib, then turned back to her with an expression that made her heart race. Can I? He hesitated. Can I hold you? Just hold you? She nodded, stepping into his embrace. His arms came around her, strong and careful and achingly familiar. She pressed her face against his chest, hearing the rapid beat of his heart, feeling the way his body trembled slightly with emotion. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you, he murmured into her hair, proving that you made the right choice. Just love us, she whispered back. That's all I need. Just show up and be present and love us. I can do that. He pulled back slightly to look at her face. I want to do that. For the rest of my life, if you'll let me. The divorce papers, she started. Throw them away. Burn them. I don't care. His hands cupped her face. I don't want a divorce, Amelia. I want my wife back. I want my family back. I want everything we almost lost. She searched his eyes, looking for any hint of doubt or reservation. Found only certainty and love and the kind of determination that had built an empire, now redirected toward building a family. Okay, she said finally. Okay, okay. He repeated it like he couldn't quite believe it. I want to try, to be a family, really be a family. She smiled through her tears. But you're still going to that hotel tonight. We're taking this slow. He laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. I'll go as slow as you need. I'll wait as long as it takes. And the board meeting tomorrow, I'll handle it. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. Can I kiss you? Amelia's breath caught. It had been so long, almost a year since they'd been this close, this intimate. She nodded, unable to form words. The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. It tasted of coffee and tears and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, both were crying. I love you, he said again. I never stopped, even when I was too scared and stupid to show it. I love you too. The admission felt like freedom and terror all at once. God help me, I never stopped either. Oliver chose that moment to cry, breaking the spell. They both laughed, turning toward the crib where their son was demanding attention. He has perfect timing, Liam said, lifting Oliver carefully. He's your son, Amelia replied. But there was no bitterness in it now, just acceptance and maybe even joy. They stood there in the nursery, the three of them together, and for the first time in months, Amelia felt like they might actually make it, like the broken pieces of their family might be coming back together, not perfectly, but stronger for having been shattered and rebuilt. What happens now? She asked. Now? Liam looked at her, then at Oliver, then back at her. Now we take it one day at a time, one moment at a time, and we choose each other. Every single day. Every single day, she echoed. And as the morning light streamed through the nursery windows, painting everything in shades of gold, Amelia let herself believe in second chances, in love that survived mistakes, in families that could break and heal and become something new. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks and challenges and moments of doubt. But standing there with Liam and Oliver, feeling the weight of his arms around them both, she thought maybe, just maybe, they had something worth fighting for after all. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, uncertain didn't feel like a threat. It felt like possibility. 6 months later, the sound of Oliver's laughter filled the penthouse, a bright, bubbling noise that still had the power to stop Liam mid-sentence during conference calls. At 7 months old, their son had discovered the joy of peekaboo, and Amelia was currently hiding behind her hands for the 15th time, each reveal greeted with delighted squeals. Liam stood in the doorway of his home office. Not the cold, sterile space it had been before, but a room that now had family photos on the desk, and Oliver's artwork, really just colorful handprints, framed on the wall. He'd been on a video call with the Tokyo investors, finalizing details of a new partnership structure that allowed him to work mostly from home. The board meeting 6 months ago had been brutal. He'd walked in prepared to resign, to choose family over empire. Instead, he'd proposed a radical restructuring, stepping down as CEO but remaining as chairman, working reduced hours with clearly defined boundaries. Half the board had threatened to walk. The other half had been intrigued. In the end, the company had survived, thrived even. The new CEO brought fresh energy, and Liam discovered that letting go of control didn't mean losing everything. It meant gaining something far more valuable. Dada! Oliver's new favorite word rang out, and Liam's heart swelled the way it did every single time. He crossed the room, scooping up his son and spinning him gently. Oliver giggled, grabbing Liam's nose with sticky fingers. Someone had sweet potatoes for lunch, Liam observed, looking at Amelia with a smile. Someone decided to wear his sweet potatoes, she corrected, gesturing at the orange stains on Oliver's bib and his hair, and somehow, the wall. He's an artist. He needs creative freedom. He needs a bath, but she was smiling. That soft smile that Liam had fought so hard to earn back. The past 6 months hadn't been perfect. There had been arguments about his work schedule, about parenting styles, about the lingering hurt that couldn't be erased overnight. There had been therapy sessions, both individual and couples, where they'd excavated all the buried pain and learned to communicate without defense mechanisms. There had been setbacks, a business trip to Chicago that went 2 days over schedule, sending Amelia into a spiral of panic that took weeks to resolve, a moment when Oliver's fever spiked and they'd both fallen apart, old patterns threatening to resurface. But there had been healing, too, slowly, painfully, beautifully. 3 months ago, Liam had moved back into the penthouse, not into Amelia's suite. They were still taking things slow, still rebuilding trust brick by brick, but into the second bedroom close enough to help with midnight feedings, close enough to be present. 2 months ago, they'd gone on their first date since Oliver's birth. Dinner at a quiet restaurant, both of them nervous as teenagers, talking about everything and nothing until closing time. 1 month ago, Amelia had fallen asleep on the couch next to him, her head on his shoulder, and he'd carried her to bed and tucked her in, feeling more contentment than he'd ever felt closing a billion-dollar deal. Last week, she'd asked him to stay, not in the guest room, but with her, and they'd spent the night talking, holding each other, rediscovering the intimacy they'd lost. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. Bath time, Amelia announced, reaching for Oliver. Come on, little man, let's get you clean before Daddy's dinner gets here. I can do it, Liam offered. You've been with him all day.
You're right.
We'll do it together.
Yeah,
She said it easily now, that word that had once been so fraught. Together. The bath was chaotic. Oliver had discovered splashing, and by the time they emerged, both Liam and Amelia were nearly as wet as their son. But Oliver was clean and happy, dressed in pajamas with little bears that matched the song Liam still sang to him every night. Did you close the Tokyo deal? Amelia asked as they settled Oliver in his high chair with some toys while they waited for dinner. Almost. They want one more revision to the partnership agreement. He sat beside her at the kitchen table. I'll handle it tomorrow. It's not urgent. 6 months ago, everything had been urgent. Now he'd learned the difference between important and immediate, between crisis and inconvenience. Your sister called, he said. Wants to know if we're coming to her 4th of July barbecue. Are we? Amelia looked at him carefully. Together? He understood the weight of the question. It would be their first public appearance as a couple. Not co-parents. Not two people figuring things out, but as a family. Jenna's friends would ask questions. There would be speculation and judgment. If you're ready, he said, I'd like to. I'd like to stop hiding what we're building here. Amelia was quiet for a moment, studying his face. Then she reached across the table, taking his hand. I'm ready. The doorbell rang. Dinner arriving. While Liam dealt with the delivery, Amelia's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, then looked up with an expression he couldn't quite read. What is it? The partners at my firm. They want me back. She set the phone down. Full time, starting in September. They'll provide childcare support, flexible hours. It's a good offer. Liam's stomach tightened. What do you want to do? I don't know. She looked at Oliver, who was babbling happily to his toys. Part of me misses the work, the challenges. But part of me can't imagine leaving him every day. Whatever you decide, I'll support it. He meant it. If you want to go back to work, we'll make it work. If you want to stay home longer, we'll make that work too. She smiled slightly. You say that a lot now, because it's true. We're a team. He set out the food. Thai from her favorite place, the one they used to order from when they were first married. Whatever comes next, we figure it out together. They ate dinner with Oliver between them, taking turns entertaining him while they talked about Amelia's career, about Liam's restructured role at the company, about their plans for the future. It was domestic and ordinary, and absolutely perfect. After dinner, after Oliver was down for the night, they stood together in the nursery doorway watching their son sleep. I have something for you, Liam said quietly. Liam, if you bought me something expensive, it's not expensive. Well, not monetarily. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I've been working on this for months. Amelia took the box carefully, opening it to reveal a simple silver bracelet. Engraved on the inside were 3 dates. Their wedding day, Oliver's birthday, and today's date. I don't understand, she said, looking up at him. The day we got married, the day Oliver was born, and the day you let me love you again. His voice was soft. The 3 most important days of my life. Her eyes filled with tears. Liam, I know we can't erase the past. Can't pretend those 8 months didn't happen. But we can choose to move forward. To build something new on the foundation of everything we've learned. He helped her put on the bracelet. I want to renew our vows. Not now. Whenever you're ready. Maybe on our anniversary. Maybe when Oliver's older. But I want to stand in front of our family and friends and promise to love you. Choose you. Every single day for the rest of my life. Amelia was crying now, but smiling through the tears. You're really determined to make me ugly cry, aren't you? You're beautiful when you cry. He wiped her tears gently. You're beautiful always. She pulled him close, kissing him with all the love and hope and hard-won trust they'd built together. When they pulled apart, both were crying. Yes, she whispered. I want that too. A chance to start over, to make new promises we'll actually keep. We'll keep them, he said firmly, because we know what it costs to break them now. They stood there in the quiet penthouse holding each other while their son slept peacefully nearby, and Amelia felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Complete. Not because everything was perfect, but because they'd survived the imperfect and come out stronger. I love you, she said, the words coming easier now. I love you too. He kissed her forehead every single day for the rest of our lives. And as they walked hand in hand to the bedroom they now shared, ready to face whatever tomorrow brought, Amelia realized that second chances weren't about erasing the past. They were about learning from it, growing through it, and choosing to believe that love could survive even the worst mistakes. The divorce papers sat at the bottom of a drawer, forgotten and unimportant. They didn't need them anymore. Didn't need the legal end of something that had never really died, just gone dormant, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. Outside, the city lights twinkled like possibilities. Inside, their small family slept peacefully, wrapped in the kind of love that came not from perfection but from perseverance, from showing up day after day, choosing each other even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. This wasn't a fairy tale ending where all problems disappeared in a moment of recognition. This was real life, messy and complicated and absolutely beautiful in its imperfection. And it was more than enough. It was everything. What would you have done in Amelia's position? Would you have given him a second chance? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.